What is up, RotoGrinders? Week 15 NFL Pick Six Show. Two of the absolute best in the business. You got John Daigle from Establish the Run, Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis. This is the week. This is the week where all the season-long bros are getting excited. The best ball bros are getting excited. Of course, this is a DFS-centric show, but most I would assume most leagues, they're starting up this is when the playoffs start. I think some people started last week, maybe some people start next week. But Daigle, I know both of you guys have your feet in the season-long stuff, but I'm sure you're getting bombarded with all sorts of season-long questions. I guess we're not going to talk about it, but San Francisco on Thursday, it's a big deal as far as Gorendo, if he's going to play or not. We'll see how that works out. Obviously, if you guys know, you're listening live, we record on a Wednesday night. But how is the content these days, Daigle? You getting hit with a lot of season-long questions?
The hardest part about it, especially this year at this time, it's usually like this, but people, the question they're asking is usually, do I start the RB16 or RB15? Like they want to know the difference between the 0.2 points. And I'm such a big, they're both good options kind of guy, especially this year when there's 37 top 12 running backs. This slate, when we get the positional plays, I don't know how the hell I'm going to dwindle the running backs down and just get 3 of them in the lineup this week. It's tough because they're all in good matchups too. So yeah, it's just a great week and a great year for running backs.
More games, no more buys. We're done with bye weeks. 12 games on the DK slate, 13 games in the FanDuel slate. There is 2 games on Monday nights. That's why we have one less game. The other thing, speaking of running backs, not that you necessarily need it, but FanDuel specific, they did not bump up Chardonnay enough. Chardonnay is really, really affordable on FanDuel. I think he's 6-7 over there. You get the night game, the Green Bay Seattle game on FanDuel. Do not get it on DK, but there you go. If you need one more running back, there you go. You can get yourself some Chardonnay, who completely, broke the slate. You had to have him. You absolutely had to have him last week because half the field did, and he was awesome.
I think he did for what he just changed at the end. I think it was Friday, right? They rolled him out. They rolled out Kenneth Walker. It was Friday night, but he just from what he changed, because we knew we were going to get Gorendo, and then when we got 2 cheap guys, it completely altered because we talked about Wednesday paying up at tight end or paying up at quarterback to be unique, and he opened everything up because he had 2 cheap guys.
You had 3 cheap running backs.
Yeah. Braylon Allen did have the objectively worst spot. I think he was the easiest to get off of. But what Charbonnet did, it's not even fair to Gorendo because Gorendo was also really good.
Yeah.
They were 1 and 2. They were the top 2 highest scoring guys.
Yeah.
It was a great week, though. It was a fun week.
I am curious, Rich. I know you famously don't look at your best ball teams. It's really hard not to look at them now. If you're on DraftKings, if you're on, I guess you have to actually pull up the app for Underdog. But if you're on DK, all your teams are just swarmed it's just cluttering up my lobby, which is fine. I guess it's better than the worst case scenario. You didn't have anybody move on. But do you now look at it? Have you looked at it yet? Do you know I have X number of teams that moved on? Do you even know that?
Why would I care?
Well,
I can't do anything about it. I can't change anything. I can't change any lineups. Well, I have enough stuff to worry about, Dean. It's the holidays. I still have 3 more full slates to write up. I got done at 6:00 today. I literally been writing up football games for the 70 straight hours. Why do I not want to put something else on my plate? I'll check at the end. If I won money, I won money. If I didn't, I did it.
Okay. I thought maybe you'd just be curious to see, I got this many teams through.
I don't need anything else to worry about.
I haven't gone through all my teams and said, this one looks good. This one looks great. This is an A+. This one has no chance. Do you do this to exercise, Daigle? I agree with Rich on that. I think that's kind of, you can't do anything. I'm just going to check in who moves on. If somebody moves on, then I get excited. I'm assuming you're in the best ball streets as well, John?
Yes, I checked. I have a few more bullets remaining in the important best ball contest on Underdog. Not going to be checking on DraftKings anymore, though. Pretty much wiped out there. So alive at least on Underdog right now.
Yeah, and it just chip in a chair. It just takes one, even if your advance rate was not spectacular. Mine was basically as expected, whatever the 1 in 12 wasn't anything great, but we'll see. We'll see if something moves on. Then I might get excited if we're in the 2nd or 3rd round. All of a sudden, we'll pay attention. But this is, of course,
and if I made the final, someone would surely let me know.
I will let you know. Would you not want to know? Is it annoying if I tell you? I don't want to
like that. I just someone would let me know if I got there. That'd be fine. But I don't need anything else to worry about.
This year will be a little different too because Establish the Run. We launched the best ball product when they hired me last year, but we did so at the end of March, early April, sometime around there. Whereas this year we're going to launch it ahead of the first contest, the big board. And so probably what will happen is I'll be in New Orleans hanging out with Rich and other friends for the Super Bowl on Bourbon Street together. And then I'll take a week or two off and then immediately jump into the best ball streets once again.
That's amazing. That sounds like a plan. Are you going to the game or you're going to be lurking and just hanging out and partying all week? Or you don't know?
We're going to find out. I don't think we have plans to go to the game yet, but let's see what the boys talk each other into around Friday night at 6 a.m. on Bourbon Street.
We may actually have a Super Bowl preview. I don't know if you guys heard. Am I the first person to say we have a Super Bowl preview this week? Probably not. Somewhere in 70 hours of Rich's writings, at some point he probably said
two Super Bowl previews this week. I think one's going to suck, but we have two previews.
Giants Ravens.
What's the second? Oh, Pittsburgh Philly? Is that?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Get out of here.
Why not? I'm just saying.
This is the most prototypical Steelers team there's ever been. Steelers teams.
Nobody wants Pittsburgh Philly. I don't know the Pittsburgh. Yeah. I don't want to talk about Pittsburgh last week with the scratch and their passing game. Probably a lot of handoffs this week coming up.
And 10K Saquon, no TDs, 120 yards. We'll get you there on other slates. Not that
Worked out great, man.
I may or may not have fallen for like Calvin Austin and players of that ilk.
I went down the Calvin Austin pad too. Did not go well.
Yeah, all you needed was Justin Jefferson, baby. Justin Jefferson was the dude.
It's
he wasn't the best receiver on his team, Justin Jefferson.
No, but I mean he was the Saquon money. Though.
It's incredible that Darnold didn't even win tournaments last week. Just Jordan Addison or Justin Jefferson sprinkled around the Bills-Rams super stacks.
Josh Allen. Turns out Josh Allen still good at football. Just absolutely
Rich said it. Rich said it. We got to Josh Allen, Kyron Williams skinny stacks last week. Both of them got there, but you had to get to 5 players in that game.
You guys talked about it last week. I don't think you specifically said it, but the way I was hearing, I heard Rams upset. You guys I'm like, the Rams are going to win this game if I'm listening to you guys correctly. And that Allen did everything he possibly could. What a spectacular game.
But the Bills letdown, I mentioned letdown game. The Bills letdown was still 40 points. I'm terrified of them.
Well, it's perfect. Like those games, what really sets those games off always is the defensive touchdown. And when the Rams had that block punt touchdown, it just kind of threw that game into a game state that was going to be like hair on fire.
And Sean McVay will do that once a year. Last year, remember, we got maybe we even talked about it on the show last week, whenever they went into Baltimore, had no business hanging around with what was an historically great, by all accounts, defense for the Ravens. And the Rams took them into overtime on the road. They just didn't get the ball back, so they didn't get a chance to win the game. But Sean McVay will pull that from time to time, have this like amazing game where they upset someone.
And all those big games always have, all the big shootouts always have defensive points too. Like even remember that 100-point Rams game, Chiefs game? It had like 3 defensive touchdowns. A couple weeks ago when it was Browns-Broncos, that game they went wild on Monday. I mean, you have the defensive, all those games. Those are what really throws those game states into chaos.
We might be talking about Jameis in a second. Not just yet, but we'll table that. We'll table Buffalo, Detroit. That is the dessert. The main course is Kansas City, Cleveland, but the appetizer as far as the 3 main games on this week number 15, Indy at Denver. 44 is the total. Denver 3.5-point favorite. Daigle, you chose this game, Indy and Denver. Start wherever you want to start.
It's trying to spread out the slate. I didn't even want to get to the Chiefs, admittedly, because there's no worse team to talk about, to write about, to watch play football than this Chiefs offense this year. But we will, because I think it's going to be a fun matchup, mixed in an afternoon game as well for everyone. But if there's one that may let us down, but also may shoot out, a volatile one, I think it could be this one. A couple weeks ago before their bye, remember, we hinted at this last week that Bo Nix, it was just a suboptimal spot for him because he's still been very bad under pressure. Outside the top 30 quarterbacks this year in both yards per attempt and completion rate under pressure. And that's what the Browns do. Even in allowing big plays still to this day, they can get after the quarterback, literally lead the league in pressure rate because they have talent in their front 7. But the Colts are not that. The Colts on the season are 31st in creating pressure, and Bo Nix has been a significantly better quarterback, including 14 touchdowns, only 4 picks, 7 yards per attempt, 70% completion rate from a clean pocket this year. So I do think it's a sneakier spot for Bo Nix. The issue in stacking him is that, one, he has not been running the ball of lately, which arguably takes away from his upside. Perhaps we get more of that. But two, the ball is still being spread out everywhere. Even before the bye, we saw someone like Marvin Mims, who I do think is live on DraftKings. He's 4K, but we saw them slowly begin integrating him more. And that includes really keeping both Devon Vele and little Jordan Humphrey still involved in that offense. Marvin Mims now in his last 4 games for the bye too, including carries, 7 touches, 5 touches, 5 touches of 42 yards. And then, of course, the long 70-yard bomb on Monday night ended up with 109 yards and a touchdown on 4 touches overall. So there are unique ways to play Nix if you want to get there. I'm sure we'll talk about some cheap running backs for Denver too. But overall, yes, I do think it's a spot where the Broncos offense has a very successful day. Just not quite sure how. Still piecing it together.
Yeah, Rich, what do you have as far as Denver? Sutton is probably the piece you want, but he's all of a sudden a little bit pricier these days, justifiably so. John mentioned the running back stuff. It's so murky. And the running backs are like good otherwise. It just feels like, to me, I will avoid it. I don't really care if somehow Javonte Williams gets 3 touchdowns, whatever. McLaughlin gets 3 touchdowns. I suppose I lose this week and I tip my cap and move on.
That's not going to happen.
I don't think so. What do you have as far as Denver?
Yeah, I mean, the backfield they're just playing the hot hand situation in game. They're kind of doing it by feel. Javonte Williams has been absolutely dreadful. He's last in the NFL in yards per carry of all running backs at 100 or more carries. His last 2 games, he has 12 carries for -1 rushing yards. Pretty impressive. But if they get inside the 5, it's still probably going to be him, right? Like McLaughlin has over 6 yards per carry in each of the past 2 games, but is he going to score a touchdown, right? Is he going to catch a lot of passes? Probably not. So where's like the true upside there? On a slate where like there's just so many running back plays on this slate. Sutton's like the one guy. He deserves to be priced like that. I mean, he's operating as like a true wide receiver 1. I mean, he was up into this point in his career considered like a volatile, boom or bust receiver. I mean, he has 6 or more catches in 6 consecutive games since week 7. He's basically the wide receiver 8 in target share, wide receiver 7 in yards per out run, wide receiver 4 in air yard share. So his worst game over that span is 7 for 78. Like, he's a high floor player now all of a sudden, right? The Colts don't give up a lot of points to receivers because they don't face a lot of targets to wide receivers because they're not good. They only face 17 targets per game to wide receivers because they're consistently trailing. Broncos also home favorites here. They're 6-0 as home favorites so far this season. They've really kind of won these games that they should win is where they've been this year. The one interesting guy I think that kind of stands out would just be Devon Vele. He did not have a good game before the bye, but it was a matchup that totally wasn't for him. I mean, he's got completely catawampa splits between zone and man coverage. Only been targeted on 15% of his routes against man coverage, goes to 24% against zone coverage. We know what Gus Bradley's going to do. Dead last in rate of man coverage, the Indianapolis Colts. So, I mean, you look at him against cover 3 too. He's second behind Cortland Sutton in target rate. And he's also second behind Cortland Sutton in rate of targets that go for a first down or touchdown. 42% of his targets have gone for a first down or touchdown. So you do get a little bit of juice with him too. He'd be like the one piece, but that's really kind of it. I mean, the rest is Denver's going to rotate the rest of these dudes.
Let's go ahead and knock out the Colts as well, Rich. We may get Downs back this week. Taylor is so strange. It's like his backfield and like we don't care. At least I don't care. It's like it's this entire. We love running backs that have the entire backfield. And like, whatever. Thanks. I'm not going to play him, but so be it. Richardson will steal some carries from him as well, and he doesn't really catch the ball. Those are the hits. Not as well as other running backs, but I don't really like the Colts side a ton. Outside of maybe like if you want to do naked Rich, I suppose, but I don't see anything that's terribly exciting for Indy. Rich, can you talk to me into anything here?
No, we're going to Daigle to talk us into here. Jonathan Taylor, dead last in the NFL in success rate. The Colts have used 10 different offensive line combinations so far this year. Jonathan Taylor's dead last in success rate per run. Road dog. He's averaging a career low 1.4 catches per game. Not a lot to get excited about. We don't know if Downs is even going to play, though. Like, that's the thing, is we haven't really heard a lot. I don't know if anyone's heard stuff today, but there seemed to be question marks he was even going to play out of the bye. So we'll kind of have to wait on that. He'd be the one Colt I would be interested in just because of, his effectiveness against man coverage and being able to operate out of the slot in this matchup. But we're going to need Daigle to sell us on some Colts pieces.
He is practicing, by the way. I am seeing Downs practicing, so take that for what it's worth. Daigle, you got a sales pitch for us?
Josh Downs is really it. Now we've seen with him on the field from Anthony Richardson, still leading the team with a 33% target share. Michael Pittman behind him in those instances, 23%. Alec Pierce is the guy he's averaging 23 yards per catch against man coverage because that's what he does. He gets one-on-one and Richardson launches inefficient balls to him. But at the same time, it's a very, very volatile play. And I believe he's still mid 4Ks. He doesn't really come down from there because he is explosive enough to where he also shouldn't be mid 3Ks. So DraftKings and FanDuel, they make you eat that salary just in case he does pop off for a big one here. So I think he'll get a few targets, sure, even if Josh Downs is out there. But other than that, no, those are the Colts pieces. Rich said, like Jonathan Taylor, it's just a hard sell right now. No one else is touching the ball, and it doesn't even matter.
It's very strange. 25% chance to make the playoffs, according to NFL.com, the Colts.
This is an important game for both teams.
Yeah. They're 6-7. I was just kind of surprised. I guess that speaks to how bad the AFC is, or just so collectively some teams are, I suppose. Or also maybe too many teams have chances at the playoffs, I suppose. But
this is also an important game for us because we get to make generational wealth on whoever wins the AFC South betting against them. It's going to be fun.
Who do they play against?
Not sure yet, but no one deserves to win the AFC South. I know that.
Fair enough. Houston's up top, right? I think that's where isn't Houston the number one team in the AFC South? Yeah.
Yes.
Happy to bet against both those teams. Okay, that is the first game. Anything else we have of note as far as this game? Let's move on. Game number 2, Kansas City at Cleveland. Jameis. It's so funny that Mahomes and Jameis is a much more interesting quarterback amongst these two. We did see Aaron Rodgers finally having a 300-yard game. Mahomes has kind of been I don't want to say worthless, but not really useful anytime this year. Maybe he had 2 games over 20 DK points, but it's so sad what has happened to this Kansas City offense. Just they used to be so much fun. Not so much anymore. 45 is the total. Also, I was looking at the Blitz. Shout out to Derek Carty. Most projected plays. We're expecting a lot of pace in this one, Kansas City and Cleveland. So maybe that's enough to get us excited about Mahomes and some Pacheco, some KC pieces. Of course, Cleveland, we're certainly interested. Rich, set the table. Start wherever you want to start.
Yeah, this game was an early kind of flag for an over. It got bet immediately. I think it opened at 43.5, got bet up. And it's kind of gone the other direction. But this definitely has potential to get there. I mean, the Browns both these defenses have been pretty bad. I mean, the Chiefs are 31st in defensive EPA their past 6 games after they were 10th in the league prior. They haven't been getting any pressure on the quarterback. They lost Jalen Watson in the back end. It's been a different defense. The one thing about the Chiefs, though, is they do slow games down because they don't generate any explosive plays. We're hoping the Browns defense is kind of the remedy for that. The Browns are number 1 in the NFL in completion rate allowed, but when they give plays up, they give them all up. They give up all the yards. Daigle talked about that. Bo Nix, right? Wasn't even good that game. He hits a 93-yard touchdown. That's kind of what we're hoping for to happen in this game. The one worry though is the Browns still get pressure. Mahomes already been sacked a career high 35 times. They're gonna be starting, DJ Humphries at left tackle. Now they've been kind of just trying everything right at that spot. So hopefully he can help that there because Mahomes under pressure this year has been different. It's been a different quarterback. I mean, he's 20th in completion rate, 17th in yards per pass attempt, 15th in touchdown rate. The previous career high for his sack rate under pressure was 13%. He's been sacked on 22% of his pressures already this year. So we're hoping that something gives here between these defenses to kind of help jumpstart this Chiefs offense and creating some explosives. But the fact that the Chiefs defense is playing bad and the Browns are allowing explosives is kind of the avenue to how you get here with all that play volume. And you hope that we can get there and push towards a 50+ point game.
Why do you think that is, by the way? Why do you think Mahomes is kind of
Well, the offensive line's been bad. I mean, they've been rotating a lot of different players on the offensive line and on offense at pass catcher as well. They don't generate any explosives in the run game at all. This is one of the most anemic run games. They're actually dead last in explosive run rate as an offense. Now that Pacheco's back, maybe they can get some more explosive runs, but they just don't have any game breakers. Like Xavier Worthy's the one guy they have, and half the time he makes a mental mistake.
He's got to stay in bounds in order for the play to count. They're not giving Hopkins like full routes and all that kind of stuff. And I think part of that has to do with like compensation for drafts allegedly, but we don't care for the reasons, but that's the way it's going to be going forward. John, are we excited about the Chiefs here against Cleveland?
I think we're most excited about Cleveland's side of the ball.
Yeah.
It just continues to be spread out for Kansas City. That's the issue. Rich already said we can't play the running game, especially since they are still mixing up the targets. Like Kareem Hunt he's not really involved anymore. He's now a backup, but he's still getting the targets and routes run over Pacheco there. Not to mention that DeAndre Hopkins, at least he has 9 targets now in back-to-back games. Travis Kelce, he's priced, and rightfully so, as one of the top 2 tight ends on the slate every week. He should be. But at the same time, Noah Gray's pops up enough to be annoying. It's like a running back that cannibalizes the situation. Noah Gray has 4 catches in 4 consecutive games. Like they've run 2 tight end sets on 43% of their plays the last month. Like Noah Gray is a real deal here. So maybe if you're trying to like game stack and you're going way overboard, you get to Noah Gray as a cheap option. But otherwise, it's just really hard because the ball is so spread out.
I do think Worthy is in play for this particular game, just the way the Browns give up plays. At his price point. I mean, they've allowed the most touchdowns to wide receivers on deep targets this year. They've also allowed 23 receptions, tied for the most in the league on those. So, like, if you're going to cash one in, because Worthy, as volatile as he was to start the year, I mean, he does have at least 4 catches in 4 straight games too. He's had a little bit of a better floor. He just needs to stop making, the mistakes on the big ones, the home runs. He had a play against the Raiders on that Black Friday game where he was behind the defense and it looked like a pretty decent throw. And he didn't even like stick his arms out for it. He's like kind of let it go over his head. It's like he just keeps making those types of plays. But I do think he's relatively interesting in this game because he's the one guy I think that in this particular matchup could be like the big play guy.
The other side, we don't know about. It seems unlikely Njoku is going to play at this point. I saw the Coach Speak Index basically saying he probably plays next week and this week iffy. And we don't know about Cedric Tillman. Is Jordan Akins a thing? Is he worth acknowledging if Njoku doesn't play as a cheapie, a 2.7 tight end on DK? Is that something you guys are prepared to talk about, Jordan Akins? And
we've already seen a couple games where he started for David Njoku. I'm looking up what he had because I was not prepared to talk about that.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean
no, you're good.
I mean, you can play any cheap dude, but the thing about Njoku that was going to be interesting anyways, even though people were going to get like the Chiefs matchup stuff, is that anytime the Browns have had all their receivers available, Njoku's actually been 4th on the team in targets. So there was going to be some volatility there with Cedric Tillman coming back, and obviously small sample stuff is there. But Njoku also is tied for dead last in yards per catch among tight ends. I mean, he's gotten a lot of targets, but if those targets were going to be compromised, he might have been kind of not as good of a play as I think people were going to push him up to be anyways.
I think a lot of Zach Ertz.
No, Evan Ingram is actually dead last.
So, what'd you say, John? Go ahead.
Zach Ertz has actually been, good for Zach Ertz as well. Like that dude is doing nothing but earning targets. He'll fall down, but he's earning targets. I think my favorite player among them, like Jerry Jeudy's always open for a big play, always live for a big play, and perhaps like depending who we lose, if we lose Njoku, get Tillman, just like we saw against the Broncos. Like if you want a game stack here, you know where the targets are going to go. They're not going anywhere but the big 3 receivers. So you can mix and match or honestly play all of them if you think this game gets there as a whole with Winston, who I expect to be the cash game quarterback probably at his salary. But I think my favorite is Elijah Moore in this game, most likely. Since Amari Cooper was traded, Moore has led the team with 59% of his routes from the slot. The Chiefs are allowing a league high 16.5 fantasy points per game to opposing slot receivers. So that seems to be the signal I want to chase. But either way, it's a tremendous spot for Winston in the passing game. I see the chat mentioning the rain. So assuming weather holds, because, we've never made bad decisions, including the last snow game we saw based on weather. But even in limiting the Chargers to 17 points on Sunday night, like the Chargers were really just shooting themselves in the foot because of Jim Harbaugh. Lots of first half early down runs, which led to long third downs, then punting 5 times in the first half. They come out in the second half much more explosive, drive the field with ease. And it's like Rich said, now the Chiefs, since week 8, they're literally dead last in pressure rate, worse than the Panthers as well. And Jameis is 2 entirely different quarterbacks. We said last week how it's a bad matchup against the Steelers, getting Alex Highsmith back. It was the same matchup practically against the Chargers. This is not that matchup, especially since Steve Spagnuolo rolls out a lot more man coverage too. So the fact we don't expect Winston to be pressured and he's going to get the coverage he performs better against, like that's why it's such a clean spot for him and his receivers who were available.
We're not going to freak out about rain and things of that sort. And like you said, rain, on Wednesday night, what are we going to say? I did check and see if Roth wrote anything up about rain. There are 5 games that are currently yellow, but subject to change. And we tend to overreact to stuff like this. And certainly not going to overreact on a Wednesday. Rich, you're talking about how inept the explosive plays were for Kansas City on the ground. I'm guessing Cleveland's like right there. Are they also bottom 2, bottom 3, bottom 4? I would imagine so. Do we want any part of this rushing game? I don't think we do.
No, and the Chiefs are still really good against the run. Like they've been excellent against the run all year. So we're definitely not challenging, the Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford duo for a team that can't run the football. It's literally all about the dropbacks. But the fact that this game opened with Chiefs -4 was really telling, right? Against the 3-10 Browns team.
Yeah. We talked about it last week. By the way, we said, what sort of miracle? How is Kansas City taking on the Chargers? The Chargers historically, not so much this year, but like previous regimes, always find the goofiest ways to lose, and Kansas City finds the goofiest ways to win. And the doink, Kansas City, the classic, Jesse Pinkman.
I mean, the fact that the Browns can't run though is what's opened this thing up. I mean, you look at Jameis's dropbacks. I mean, he's averaging 43 pass attempts per game as the starter.
Love it.
And that's what you buy, right? Like that's what you're buying. Like it doesn't even matter if you love the spot or not. It's just you're getting value at a cheap cost. That's why Judy's been so underpriced, right? And it was Tillman for a while until he got hurt. So that offers opportunity. And Tillman, if he plays, I mean, he is the highest target rate per route run against man coverage under Jameis Winston. So like he has the opportunity to make plays. So it is open for the salary to build around this game if you want to.
Daigle, you said that Jameis is the cash game quarterback, and I didn't think that sounded ridiculous, but the stuff I ran, like he's not hitting basically anything. And I'm just surprised to see, and Wednesday night, yada, yada. But like, as of right now, he wasn't hitting stuff. And that's surprising to me.
Is it right now what you're running? Is it Kyler? Because he's only 500 more.
No, it's probably Herbert, right?
29% Kyler on DK.
He's 500 more and you get the rushing juice with it. So kind of figured.
He's in a great spot too.
Yeah.
Stroud is the most popular guy.
Herbert's the next dude we got a moratorium on the optimals. Like we gotta bump him out. Like he keeps popping up early in the week. And it's like the Chargers literally, they just don't have the bodies, man.
Yeah.
No. He can't throw it to himself, right?
Yeah, he's got like 3 injuries again. Like you just can't do it.
Got banged up again, which also took away that little rushing floor we had for a month and a half. Yeah, it's not pretty.
All right. Favorite run back on Kansas City? Is it Noah Gray? Like
that's worthy.
Is that the best option? All things considered, obviously, salary considered. Is that the best? Oh, it's Worthy. Yeah. I think Worthy is a good call.
I'm open to Noah Gray for sure, just to spin down somewhere. And maybe if you play lots of players, you even flexing Noah Gray would also take away some running backs here. The thing is about the running backs too this week, you don't have to spend up. Like even the mid 6K guys are in really good spots. Again, we're going to get there, but there's just, I don't know how you get away from 3 running backs. And there's so many pivots as well that aren't going to be as rostered. So it's just a crazy week.
That's the other thing I'm seeing is seeing two tight ends and optimals. And it just, I have a natural inclination to just say like, no, not do it. Certainly for cash games, I want to do my best to get in 3 running backs, especially this week. But that's just the way things are getting spit out right now. I think
to make salary work, like, the next game we're going to talk about has a lot of expensive pieces. If you want to flex Noah Gray, I could see like builds where that comes out for someone.
What am I saying right now? Since I'm on it, McBride is like hitting stuff really hard. This is the week he finally scores.
Every week, copy paste.
102 targets. Is it 102 targets so far this year?
It's not going to be a McBride week either, so maybe it will be.
It's not just like targets either. It's the routes run. It's the yards per route run. Like he has the best usage of any tight end, except he can't find the damn end zone.
I love it because he keeps getting chances, and there's just like they're all so close. That's what makes it good, is that he keeps getting the chances.
Kyler tried several times. I don't know the number. From what I saw, maybe 2 or 3, end zone targets last week. Right near the end of the game, just like a nonsense touchdown.
He had one the second to last play of the game, kind of off his hands.
That's what I was, just to kind of get that narrative. Yeah, let it go away. You lose the game, but at least we stop talking about this. Nope.
He does have 2 touchdowns, to be fair, on the year.
Yes.
Like there are a bunch of other guys. Like Hunter Henry only has 1 touchdown, and he keeps getting played every week.
Yeah. When Austin Hooper scores, you think it's Hunter Henry.
That's right.
Well, no, that's not. That's not Hunter Henry.
This is a Kelsey home game too, by the way.
What is this now?
A Kelsey home game. He's only played in Cleveland 1 time.
He went to Cincinnati. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, he's from Westlake, which is like literally right outside of Cleveland. He only played here once and scored 2 touchdowns.
Oh, let's see. That's the narrative we need.
The Eras tour is over. Is Taylor going to make an appearance?
The problem with Kelsey is he's been sapped like this too. Career low 8.5 yards per catch for Kelsey. He's like catches the ball like near the line of scrimmage. He hasn't had that yak juice that old Kelsey had. And hey, to be fair, he's 35 years old now. Like it happens, but only 8.5 yards per catch for him, man.
Does he play football next season?
I don't know.
Actually, don't know. If they win the Super Bowl, maybe not. And you don't know this, Dean, since you're in Florida, but there is an Arctic chill coming through overnight Thursday. So will Taylor Swift be in Cleveland? I'm going to say no. I don't think so.
The tour is over, and so you have to support. We'll see. Stay tuned, I suppose. Anyways, we teased it. Game number 3, game of the week. The biggest total on the board by 7 points or so. Buffalo at Detroit, possible Super Bowl preview. 54.5 total. That's what it was last night. It might have changed. Did it change since then? I'm not sure. But this game should be a lot of fun. Detroit is a 2.5 point favorite. Last I saw as well. But Daigle, Buffalo and Detroit. It's tough with Buffalo because we talk about naked Josh Allen all the time, and the pieces always kind of stink. And now we saw someone get there last week. But Cooper had 14 targets and still not running enough routes in theory. Well, I wouldn't say enough, but running enough to get there. But just if you're targeted 40% of the time and you're on the field, that matters too. Whatever the number was, I'm sure you guys have it. But
54% of his routes.
54. I undershot it.
He's yet to run 70% of a route on 70% of the dropbacks as he's joined the Bills. We'll probably get Keon Coleman back this week.
I don't think Hopkins has reached that yet either, right?
No.
I don't think he's reached 70% yet with the Chiefs. Since they're practicing in full on Wednesday, it looks like we could be adding Keon Coleman and Dante Kincaid to the mix. Yeah. So it just makes it a little more confusing. Like I don't expect Keon Coleman to pop up, but he's played 2 games with Amari Cooper, and for some odd reason, although he couldn't earn targets before, he had a 21.8% target share in both of the games he played with Cooper. So time will tell. Also, what makes this game frustrating to fade, if you are even going to choose that route, is that you can't leverage off with James Cook. There's 0 chance you're playing the running game here because the Lions now, since week 10, despite being even last week on their 4th and 5th defensive tackle, they're allowing just 2.8 yards per carry on the ground. They were, again, on their backups against Josh Jacobs. He had only 3.6 yards per carry. 73% of his fantasy points came from the 3 touchdowns he scored. They also lead, the Lions do, the league in man coverage on 45% of their snaps. Rich talked about the splits last week where Josh Allen, until that point, had not thrown a single touchdown against zone coverage, which the Rams leaning on what Raheem Morris left behind. And then Josh Allen, of course, scores 54, 58 fantasy points, depending what your format is.
He only threw 1 touchdown against zone, and it was the Shakir created it.
It was the one outside the red zone, the really big one.
We joked about Shakir not getting end zone targets, and he said, I'll score from 50.
Yeah. We joked about Shakir getting red zone targets, too. And he said, okay, I don't need the red zone, actually. But this year, unlike zone coverage, Josh Allen, league high 16 touchdowns, only 2 picks. The Lions, despite being really good against running backs, also did leak 61 rushing yards to Anthony Richardson, 39 yards to Caleb Williams recently. So, yeah, it just seems like another week where let's try to fit these pieces and figure out who to play with Josh Allen.
Rich, the way I'm looking at this one is that the game looks spectacular. Obviously, the total, we're going to want some pieces. But, yeah, John kind of laid it out. There's so many different guys. They're going to rotate through. I don't know who to play. And Allen, the matchup's not amazing. Obviously, of course, he can overcome anything. But it's just weird. I don't love this game from a fantasy perspective when you consider salaries. I like the Detroit side a little bit more, I think. The running backs, I suppose. But how much do I need this game? Where are you at as far as Buffalo? Feel free to jump over to Detroit.
Well, it's a full slate too. We talked about last week that there were two quarterbacks. The funny is, Sam Darnold ended up scoring 40 points, just under 40. He was the guy that I played the most, and didn't even matter because Josh Allen ran me down. But we talked about the way the slate set up last week, that either Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts had potential to put that slate out of reach, the way it was set up.
Yeah.
This week it's full. Like where we have the cupboard is full. Like Lamar's facing the Giants as a 15-point favorite. It's like you might not need him as much. Now, obviously, if you get 50 points, you get 50 points. What's interesting about Josh Allen that I think from Daigle kind of was starting on too is the rushing stuff. And it's funny is last year he didn't run at all the first half of the year, Josh Allen. And then when they fired, I'm trying to think who's the offensive coordinator they fired.
Ken Dorsey.
Yeah, Ken Dorsey. And everyone's like, oh, Joe Brady's got him running again. And then this year, it's been just the same way. I mean, weeks 1 through 9, he had one game where he rushed for 50 yards. He was only averaging 23 yards per game. And then now the past month, 50, 55, 18, 82. He's got 33 rushing attempts over the past month. He had 47 through 9 weeks. I think it's a little calculated, the Josh Allen running, turning it on, the back half of the year. And since Aaron Glenn has been with the Lions, I mean, they play hyper-aggressive defense. They like to play man coverage, they like to blitz. What happens when you do that? You give up a bunch of rushing yards to quarterbacks. The 3 years he's been there, they were 30th in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks in 2023, dead last in 2022. Right now they're 26th. So it's like, I think Josh Allen, if you get anything in the low 30s in your book right now, just go hammer it. Just go hammer it right now with those Josh Allen rushing yards. So the receivers are still the one clear guy that stands out is still just Shakir. And you do have to hope for you get the run out last week. I mean, where he houses the long touchdown, but I mean, we like to play slot guys against the Lions, unless you go big personnel like Matt LaFleur did on Thursday night. Your slot guy can't get on the field when you're not playing 3 wide receiver sets. But I think that's not going to be the case with Buffalo. But Shakir would be the one guy if you're looking to force a stack that I would play with Allen.
I'm seeing 33.5, by the way, 33.5, 34.5, depending on where you're shopping as far as rushing yards for Josh Allen. Is this possible ladder season? Do we like the ladder here? Maybe
you might be able to. Yeah, if you want to go take it to 50, I think that it's reasonable
in the dome on the turf. Speaking of rushing, I suppose the Detroit side. Let's talk about the Detroit running backs. Rich, if you want to discuss the receivers, by all means. Amon-Ra, he's awesome. It's just he had that 1 week where he got there, and I had to stop saying, well, when do you ever actually need this guy? He's always good, but never amazing. And
I think this is an Amon-Ra game.
Okay. So sell me on Amon-Ra.
Well, I think it's the running back game first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's an outcome where, because we talked about Kyron getting there with Kyron last week. Buffalo is allowing 148 yards from scrimmage to running backs, 27th in the league. They've allowed the highest rate of explosive runs on running back carries. They're 27th in yards allowed before contact. They also are allowing a league high 12.5 PPR receiving points per game to running backs. So this could be a spot where these running backs, remember the Detroit running backs, they lead the NFL in touches per game and yards from scrimmage per game. They've combined for 22 rushing touchdowns. Each guy has 12 touchdowns. Monty's catching passes. Monty has 32 catches this year. Gibbs has 34. They've just been completely interchangeable. They each have 212 touches. It's been both guys kind of interchangeable. So it could be a Gibbs-Montgomery combo game, and that kind of what is the one outcome that slows this game down.
Yes, keeps the clock moving. I think it's kind of grinded out as far as some long, 7, 8, 9 minute drives. John, your take as far as the Lions?
Another frustrating target tree. I completely agree with Rich. I believe it's going to be a running back game, and it's hard to choose. We used to be able to say with ease that at least David Montgomery was going to get lower ownership, but I think everyone's slowly catching on to that now too. The last couple of slates I've checked in, it hasn't been even still, but his ownership continues to rise because they know, at least the first 2 drives, it'll be all Montgomery, and then it'll be all Gibbs. And then from that point forward, they really just continue to make it interchangeable. It's also been been back-to-back games now where Dan Campbell does like to instill his physicality to begin contest. Perhaps this is another one. It's not a division contest, but still one against a very big opponent, a very big game at home, because you need to prove that you belong in the Super Bowl, as they did with the Packers. The only team that is truly trying to become Mahomes-proof and say, okay, what if we don't give you the ball back on 4th down? We just end the game with our own field goal. I love it. I love it. So Dan Campbell's definitely out here trying to beat you down in the trenches and win games. And that's, yes, like Rich said, is how it slows down. The thing is, without Khalif Raymond now, the past couple of games, Tim Patrick has become a nuisance. Like, all we're doing is adding another person into this target tree. Matches Sam Laporta last week, both of them with 7 targets, which was, right around Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams also. Williams has kind of been closer to Cortland Sutton than Nick Westbrook-Akine lately too. Since he came back from injury, he's dropped below 20% of the team's targets in only 1 game. Even led the team with 8 targets last week. So it's just interesting because now, again, it just continues to be so spread out. So despite like Amon-Ra being Rich's call, I am still a little bit worried about the ceiling at that salary, since if we're trying to play Josh Allen, we just don't have much room here.
This is the player that beats the Bills, man. Like, when you look at like the Bills, the Lions have the recipe for what the Bills want to do defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they want to play zone coverage. They don't want to give up big plays. They're 31st in rate of pass plays that go over 10 yards, but they've allowed the lowest rate of pass plays over 20 yards. They're bend but don't break. They want you to have long drives, and like Puka Nacua, like these Amon-Ra is the archetype that the Bills struggle with. Like, guys that can move around, operate in the middle of the field. This is that Tim Patrick. That was the first game he had more than 4 targets, and it happened to coincide with a game that Amon-Ra St. Brown also didn't have targets. Right? It's like the Jalen McMillan thing. When people look at the Jalen McMillan box score from this week, you're like, oh, you like those targets. Well, Mike Evans also only had 18% of targets. How many weeks is that going to happen in a row? Right? So there's these things that coincide that you can't always pull for. Like, so I don't think that Tim Patrick buying what he did last week is going to be par for the course, kind of weekly. You look at where Amon-Ra does his work. He has 32 receptions from the slot. The next closest player on the Lions is 10. That's including Sam Laporta. The Bills, 9.9 yards per target allowed to slot receivers, 31st in the league. 51% of the catches they've allowed to wide receivers have come from the slot. It's the second highest rate in the league. He also gets a huge bump against zone coverage. 25% target rate against zone coverage, 2.3 yards per outrun. I mean, he is the archetype that, like, this is a game built for Amon-Ra to do damage in this game.
I think that's good though, because unlike Justin Jefferson, where everyone slowly got there because they saw the regression kicking in, I don't think Amon-Ra will actually be owned on this slate at all.
I'm kind of looking at Amon-Ra versus the guys around him, and I was going to ask, like, okay, so AJ Brown is 8K, Amon-Ra is 7.6. Amon-Ra is going to be rostered more than AJ Brown, like, for sure.
Okay, yeah.
But Collins is a little bit more at 8.1. Chase a little bit more at 8.4. We've seen what he does, but of course he's facing Tennessee. It's tough for a matchup.
There are no tough matchups for Jamar Chase.
For Joe Burrow.
Yeah. Or was he Bart Simpson? I don't know if you guys watching the Simpsons cast. Spectacular job. That was a lot of fun. If you guys watched any of that, Mina Kimes did a great job, and that whole team. I watched at least, I got a phone call in the middle of it, but I watched like at least half that broadcast with the volume on. And many times I'm just watching games and muted and listening to podcasts and things of that sort. Do we like Amon-Ra straight up? Forget ownership, anything. Who's going to score more fantasy points, Rich? Amon-Ra or Nico Collins?
That's a good one. Ownership would play into it. It's close. I mean, Chase obviously is the number one dude, right? Like, if you have Chase salary, you always play Chase. Yeah. You can do it. And if ever we get Chase on a slate that's like sub 5%, like, by God, like, you just run to the podium.
I think people might stop. I think they might stop at Amon-Ra.
Is it because of the receiver? Is it because of running backs this week? Is that what you think? You think it's to be? Because we thought this was going to be the case last week, and then we had everything opened up. Obviously, with Charbonnet, we knew we were going to have Garendo, but when Charbonnet came on the board last week, man, it just allowed people to get to Jefferson. Although we talked about Wednesday that Jefferson was going to end up being higher on the top because of Darnold. Because when you click the quarterback, you click the receiver.
Yeah, I'm just thinking people are going to want to force stacks with Detroit and Buffalo because people see 44 total and they get excited. They just got to force that stuff. For what it's worth, right now, T. Higgins is the most popular player. And, disappointing last week, but the price is still pretty good.
Is that just salary?
Yeah, and then I'm on Ra's second as far as ownership, right? And then Nico Collins is third.
Yeah, I mean he's going to be one of the more popular guys. Then obviously you can move around it.
You got a take on that, John, as far as your favorite amongst that group, like all things considered, or it's still they're just all good and flipping coins, basically.
Yeah, it's exactly as Rich, where Nico Collins, I guess in that range, but if we factor in ownership, then probably Amon Ra. T. Higgins. We're going to talk about the Bengals. I'm curious to see where people get to because all of them are good options, but you can actually leverage in those spots too. Whereas again, you can't play James Cook here.
Speaking of the Bengals, John, this is on DraftKings. Gibbs is 7.5. Montgomery is 7K. Chase Brown 7.2. Right in between those two guys.
We got a lot of running backs this week.
But you got to play the guy that's literally getting 100% of the backfield share.
Yeah,
cash
games, which will trickle down to tournaments, but. Yeah,
he's going to be higher rostered than the Lions guys, right? Like, there's no way he's not.
Yeah. Like, currently we have him at like 25%, and we got the Lions guys like in the high single digits, basically. Yeah. Cook 1%. Yeah.
And this would be a spot where you'd look at like where the Bills are bad, especially at giving up explosive runs and catches, and you would say it's a Gibbs game, but Monty's been catching as many passes as him.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to say as far as Detroit and Buffalo? Who wins this game, John? Who wins the Super Bowl preview?
I'm going to say Detroit, but mostly because it's at home, but expecting a close one.
So you're right there with Vegas 2.5 points.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo can't really, I guess they can, but they're not going to catch Kansas City for the 1 seed, right? Most likely not. They're 2 games behind them.
I don't think so, unless Kansas City screws it up.
Yeah, they have the same.
They got the Devil's magic. I mean, the Chiefs do finish with Texans, Steelers, Broncos, and Steelers Broncos is on the road.
Yeah,
so it's like it's possible. Like they can't keep doing this. The Devil magic eventually has to run out.
What happens when Tomlin magic runs into Chiefs magic?
Which one wins?
It's a great question. Got to go overtime. And I don't think it's completely bonkers to suggest that Cleveland might be able to hang with KC. Puncher's chance this week. All right. Anything else we have here, Rich, as far as Buffalo and Detroit?
No, I mean, I don't know what you're gonna do. Like, it's hard to get to Laporta, right? Like, he's kind of been like the guy that's been lost in the sauce. Last week was the first time he had more than 3 catches in a game since week 8. Bills have been really good against tight ends. They got Matt Milano back too. It's hard to objectively because like Laporta's salary has never like rightfully fallen off a cliff either.
And we're also, it's another week where wide receiver values are lacking. And so that's why I can see people playing Tim Patrick, if only to find a way to spin down in the highest scoring game. Jalen McMillan will also probably be a popular option, but really those are the only 2 guys who stand out around 4K range.
Yeah, speaking of receivers,
it's a hard game to onslaught regardless.
Yeah.
Booty is hitting lineups again. Like, who wants
wrong? That's the wrong Patriot.
Is there a cheap one that we like?
If not, there's a way better one.
Okay. All right. I want to listen. De'Ami Brown, I'm seeing hit some lineups. Like, what?
That's because Noah Brown is out.
Yeah. And De'Ami's like only 3,100 on DK.
Yeah. Shepard and McMillan are hitting some stuff for Tampa Bay. Just, kind of make things work. But Optimals are forcing up they want us to get one of or 2 of.
Watch this be the week that Gibbs doesn't hit his longest rush because the Bills are number 1 in explosive runs allowed. Watch this be it.
It hit again last week. Shout out to you. Are you cut off? Do the sports books does not even answer your phone calls anymore?
No, I can still bet it, but I'm ding. Cause I checked. I've bet it 24 times in a row, 24 games in a row. I bet it.
And what's the record? Like 22-2 or something like that? Or
I think it's like 21-3.
That's amazing.
Incredible.
He's just the gift to everyone. For everyone that isn't limited, like I'm starting to get like tagged and stuff now, like where people are like, yeah, like I bet it.
You're 100% gonna get limited more than
yeah.
But it's fun to see people get it because like he wasn't really that good last Thursday, but he had that 20-yard run, and the second he got it, like everyone was hitting me up.
All of a sudden, your mentions start getting lit up. Okay.
But it opened, if you wanted to get it, it did open at 16.5, so get on it early.
It's probably not going to stay there. It's probably going to jump up. Yeah, get it as fast as you can. All right, going to go ahead and run this back, give our favorite plays position by position amongst games we've not yet discussed. Before we do that, want to shout out Splash. If you haven't signed up for Splash Sports, there's still time to do it now. We have a nice, sweet promo code for you. It's Roto10. When you play $100 in quick picks, you'll get a $50 back. Again, promo code Roto10. Also want to mention combo premium here at RG for a limited time. Get your first month of combo access for just $79.99, which is just $5 more than NBA premium. Do not pass up that value. Also, speaking of props and pick'em, get our expert picks from all of our favorite sites with props and pick'em. Our elite sports betting and fantasy pick'em package features bets and analysts from your favorite RG experts. Props and Pick'em also includes tools and data powered by our hardworking projections team. Okay, let's run it back. Quarterbacks. John, you're going to set the bar. What quarterbacks are we interested in we've not yet discussed?
I don't have a large pool, actually, because I think I'm somewhat sticking with what we talked about. Rich sounds like he has a much bigger pool, but I will go if you want to spend up. Again, we're going to see where this ownership comes in, but I am interested in playing some of the Bengals offense, very similar to pivoting off in the Ravens, for example, if you want to play it through Lamar, depending on how people view Derrick Henry because they can't get to him because they have to spend up for him. But Chase, one, you know where the targets are going between Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. Also, that's how you can possibly spin high ownership for both those players. Also, even though the Titans are still limiting big plays, like, dude, Joe Burrow over the last month, 18 touchdowns to 2 picks, averaging 342 yards per game. It's been absolutely insane. So I'm curious to see where ownership goes. If it goes to Chase Brown, I don't mind just trying to soak up all the points through Burrow in this spot. And then the spin down option I would mention is Bryce Young. I nearly wanted to talk about that game as a whole because both sides are so disastrous that it could lead to a lot of fantasy points despite the total being a tad lower. But Cowboys, just like the Browns, where for all their struggles, they still get pressure, but did just lose DeMario and Overshown this past game. And then Bryce Young, it's not just that he's been significantly better under pressure anyhow. Even in that Eagles game, the 50% completion rate doesn't tell the whole story. He's also adding a little bit of rushing juice now, at least 20 rushing yards in 3 of his last 4 games, 7 carries this past week against the Eagles as well. So if you're looking to spin down, he's even cheaper than Jameis Winston. So he's a little bit of a pivot, like since Rico Dowdle, CeeDee Lamb's a pivot at the wide receiver top. All those guys are good options.
I felt sharp on Monday before Dallas played Monday Night Football. I saw the look-ahead line for Carolina. Carolina was -1. And I'm like, isn't Carolina like probably better than Dallas at this point? And the home team, I know they don't really have a home field advantage. And also,
first time in 33 games, they had the longest streak for being underdogs. It's the first time they've been favored, yeah.
And everyone that saw that one Sunday night said that's wrong. Like it should be a higher number.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I wasn't the only one, and also the other thing is like only bad things can happen to Dallas. Like they lost one of the best defensive. They haven't played their game yet. They can lose more players, right? Mm-hmm. I just thought it was a strange line, and so I have Carolina -1, and at least they got closing line value. Well, we're not sure how it's going to turn out. And also, Carolina is Bryce Young kind of good now? Is he okay? I think is he going to be all right? Maybe, possibly.
Question mark.
It's still a question mark. Like it hasn't been good in the box score really, but when you watch the tape, that Eagles game, he made some crazy plays that like he didn't have the swagger to make. He didn't have the confidence to make in the first month of the season, even like dancing and stutter stepping inside the 10-yard line, trying to rush for a touchdown. Like he looks and is playing significantly better. Like if you take away drops, because he has 5 drops when he's been under pressure since he came back, his adjusted completion rate 65%. Whereas in the first month of the season, he was completing only 33% of his passes under pressure. He's a different quarterback for sure. I don't know if he's different enough to like truly bring on the question mark. Like, do we not take a quarterback? Maybe, probably, but he's at least making that conversation.
He might have bought himself another year, at least the year in the conversation. And I had Leggett in my best lineup on FanDuel, which my lineups are not good on FanDuel, but he was my best lineup and could have used that touchdown there. And like you said, he was making a play, but Leggett did not bring that last play in the last minute or so, like a 50-yard bomb touchdown. Did not quite get there. It would have been a massive upset there against Philly.
And then they asked the poor guy the question in a locker room, and you have to hear him use his South Carolina accent, like in a sad voice. It's like, oh, that accent should only be used for friendly sentences.
Is that Young or Leggett? Which one is this?
Xavier Leggett.
Leggett.
Have you not heard him talk?
I feel like I have, but it's not. I did not see this quote. Yeah,
you gotta go look up when the reporters ask him questions. Yeah, he's like Keon Coleman. He's a trip.
I like Coleman. He's fun. Rich,
have you seen the Keon Coleman whatever the travel agency commercial?
You've actually talked about it on the show before. you bring it up anytime you can mention it because it's amazing.
I'll have to watch it after the show.
Absolutely incredible.
Is it a national? Oh, it's a local Buffalo.
Yeah, it's like a local. Well, first of all, it's for a travel agency. I didn't even know there were still travel agents, but yeah, absolutely, it's an incredible commercial.
The last travel agency I'm aware of was like from the show The Americans. It's like there's travel agencies.
He does a callback to the Marshawn Applebee's commercial. It's just dynamite stuff. It's just true hero shit.
Isn't it for Niagara Falls as well? Like, is that where he is outside the
hotel?
He's
on Niagara Falls, like on the boat. Like,
anyone who's been to Niagara Falls, by the way, knows like it's like San Antonio. You spend one day there, then you get the hell out of there. There's nothing else to see there.
It's a tourist trap. I mean, it's cool. It's a nice view, but
like downtown Niagara Falls, that's not even cool. It's just like a little village that they're doing construction in every day.
I think the Canada side was nicer, if I remember correctly.
Canada side is so much better. So much better.
Rich, quarterbacks, what do you got?
I mean, you can always pay up for Lamar, a 15-point favorite against the Giants that still isn't pressuring the quarterbacks. You have Jaden Daniels in the Dome in New Orleans, who's 29th in scramble yards allowed to quarterbacks against the guy who has the highest scramble rate in the NFL.
That's the pivot, by the way, because Brian Robinson is going to be chalked this week.
Yeah, if you end up, I think those are just easy payoff ones. I think we do have to acknowledge Kyler, though, because I wanted to fluff off Kyler because of the Kyler coaster is what I've called it, like off and on this season.
I like that.
But here it is. Since week 5, Kyler Murray has faced the 49ers, the Packers, the Chargers, the Dolphins, the Bears, the Jets, the Seahawks twice, and the Vikings. He also faced the Bills and Lions in 2 of his opening 4 games. Not one single one of those teams is in the back half of the league in passing points allowed per attempt. The Patriots are 27th. This is by far the best objective matchup he's had since they've had a terrible schedule against defenses so far. I mean, New England's 24th in passing points allowed per game. They've allowed a top 10 scorer in 3 straight games, and we're talking Anthony Richardson, Matthew Stafford, 28 fantasy points, Tua, 29 fantasy points. They've had multiple passing touchdowns in 5 of their past 6 games. I mean, it is just one of those things. I do think you can just pivot and play Connor if you don't want to get off of there, because Arizona has a very low drop back rate when they're ahead. But I mean, when I just went into the hood and it's like, he has not had one free square, like literally at all. Like the last free square he had was the Rams.
Once I think I'm out, they drag me back in. You're dragging me back in here, Rich. You make a pretty good point there as far as Kyler. McBride, I presume, is the obvious pairing if you're going to pair.
No, I think I got to save it, but I do think Marv is in play this week.
Marv week. Okay. He's got a good price. He's 5.5. It's a pretty good price there for Marv. Well, okay. Anything else as far
that game has a run back too. It has a pretty, but you can play Connor too. I think you can play them all.
Yeah. So
no weather to be worried about for you weather folks. There's no rain in Arizona.
I heard the name mentioned in passing. One of you guys said his name, but I don't think anybody said like to play him necessarily. And is this the classic like Lamar versus the Giants? Yeah. I mean, have we ever seen this before? I don't want to be hyperbolic, but so Baltimore is favored by 16 have we ever seen a team favored by more than the opponent's team total is? The Giants' team total is 13 and change. Their team total is 13 and change, and Baltimore is favored by 16. But they do have a 29 team total, Baltimore. They got to score 29 in some capacity.
Oh, they're scoring 29.
So what do we? But Lamar, like, you know, he's got to beat Allen for one, but he's got to put up a big number because you're paying for him, and it hurts the rest of your lineup. Are we not playing?
I know Allen has been the toast of the town here, but like, who leads all quarterbacks in scoring per game?
I guess it's Lamar. Yeah. A la carte, or who are we pairing him with?
I like Flowers. Daigle might have another guy. I think I had Flowers on my list to talk to, so I guess I could run down some of the stuff now with him. I mean, so the Giants, typically play two coverages. They play cover one and cover three. They basically rotate those two coverages. They're 5th in the NFL in cover one, 11th in rate of cover three, and those have been the two coverages that like Zay Flowers has absolutely decimated. Against cover one, he has 31% of the team targets, 2.5 yards per route run. Against cover three, 28% of targets, 2.96 yards per route run. In the 3 games that the Ravens have been favored by a touchdown or more this season, Zay Flowers has been the wide receiver 11, 7 catches, 91 yards and a touchdown. The wide receiver 13, 7 catches for 115. And the wide receiver 3, 5 catches for 127 and 2 touchdowns. So these have been like spots where Flowers is absolutely smashed too when Lamar is smashed.
I was going to also offer Isaiah Likely. Like, I know the Giants have been incredible against tight ends, even this past week, but Isaiah Likely has been targeted on 38% of his routes without Rashad Bateman on the field. We'll see if Bateman plays. He had that knee injury going into the bye, so that might not be the case. But again, if you're going to pivot off Derrick Henry, you could get to both players, Flowers and Likely, since we talk about, getting away from, not that they're bad plays, but the cheap tight end, Stone Smart, like that's going to be chalk.
Bateman, full participant in practice on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like a good spot if you want to give him another week, but I don't know if he needs it or not. Of course, Deontay Johnson not playing. He's suspended because he didn't want to play, right? Is that
wasn't going to play anyways. That's cool on their part.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else as far as quarterbacks, or shall we move on to running backs?
No, yeah, I think it's pretty clear. Quarterbacks are good. Play good ones.
You guys are very excited about running backs this week, it sounds like. Rich, I'll let you start us off.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that I still would like to test the Dexter Lawrence-less Giants, even though they did perform well against the run last week. So you can keep playing Derrick Henry. Again, there's been 5 games this year where the Ravens have won by more than a touchdown. And in those games, Derrick Henry, 209 yards, 132, 182, 133, 140. If there ever was a Derrick Henry game script game, right? Like, this is it. It's pretty obvious. I think more on FanDuel than DraftKings, though, because you're just not catching passes. I won't take them all because there's so many, but I think the clear guy, well, I guess, so Connor, if you want to get to Connor, I'll let Daigle have the other game. But Connor, if you don't want to play Kyler just because you can't do it, you're like, I'm not playing it. I just like the other quarterbacks more. He's good. Oh, and Kyler is also going to be popular, right? Like, that's the other thing. Like Dean already said, he's tracking to be higher owned. So if you just want to come off of that, Connor is pretty good pivot. In the Arizona's last 3 wins at home, Connor 152 yards, 120, 113, 17, 21, 21 touches. New England's 24th in rushing points allowed per game to backfield. Seems like a pretty good spot for him. You got guys like Brian Robinson down here, Charbonnet if you're on FanDuel, and I'll let Daigle talk about some guys too because I want to take them all. There's a lot of guys.
I mean, I'll just go down the chalk list. We didn't touch on the big dog. We talked about Lamar Jackson, an amazing spot, but the Giants are still allowing. Oh, wait,
talked about Derrick
sorry,
Henry.
Yeah, I was thinking about Alvin Kamara. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to Brian Robinson. You didn't talk about him. Saints are the only team allowing over 5 yards per carry to opposing running backs. Brian Robinson's 2 games without Austin Eckler, who's on IR this year. 21 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown. 16 for 103 and a touchdown. Chase Brown, again, I want to see where this Bengals ownership comes in because they're scoring 30 points. I'm not sure how, but there may be a trend happening. It's only a 2-game sample, but the last 2 weeks, the Titans now 5.3 yards per carry. 4 different running backs reached double-digit fantasy points. Only 2 games, and 4 different running backs got there. So Chase Brown handling every touch. Chuba Hubbard is another obvious one. There's no one else available to touch the ball behind him. He's going to be a cash game play for sure. Dallas is dead last in the APA per carry, and they're allowing the 7th highest rushing success rate on the season. And then Rico Dowdle also on the other side, which may be a pivot option too. We've seen the last 3 games now. Dowdle has out-touched Ezekiel Elliott 66-7. It shouldn't have taken that long, but it has, and they're 2-1 in those games. Nearly defeated the Bengals if it were not for a muffed, blocked punt, which, to be fair, the Bengals were due. Like they had suffered at the hands of those all year long, so they deserve some luck in the fourth quarter. And then finally, another sneakier one. Like, no one's coming for Tony Pollard's job. Like, and you get, of course, it's the Bengals defense that just allowed Rico Dowdle to pop off for a season high in rushing yards, but also the last 3 games, Tony Pollard has out-touched the rest of Tennessee's backfield 62-10. It seems like whereas in the other week, if we had 4 or 6 teams on bye, Tony Pollard would pop up in optimals. He'd be like the ultimate cash game play. This week, he's just going to be under the radar because there's too many plays. Maybe he gets game scripted off the field, but again, if we don't think Tajee Spears is going to be involved at all, there's still multiple outs for Pollard.
Hubbard is the guy that's most popular on both the stuff that I've ran, and it looks awesome. Like, the backfield is going to be his against Dallas, and the price is not too apprehensive. I think he's really, like you guys said, it looks like so many cash games for sure. Different conversation for tournaments. You have that conversation. I heard Alvin Kamara's name mentioned. Just the overall stench of that offense, 18 total. Whatever a Jake Hayner is will be the quarterback. Kendra Miller coming back and looking all right. And they just signed Kamara. They extended a 29-year-old running back mid-season, which you don't see very often. Like, why would you want to have him beat up even more?
We talked about this last week that the Saints could change their identity without Taysom Hill because he was doing so much. So now with their offensive line completely healthy again, like maybe they did just become a 2 running back system, and that's kind of what they did. Like Kendra Miller's role will probably grow even further. He only ran 7 routes. He got the team's only carry inside the 10-yard line over Kamara, and that came in the first quarter. That wasn't even in garbage time. So I just expect him to continue handling more carries because he is a very good player. I know Dennis Allen hated him because he suffered too many hamstring injuries, but he's a very good prospect and a very good player.
4-5 on DK. And also what a best ball story too, from the start of best ball season to he might all of a sudden now be a guy you want, depending on how things crack, if not this week, next week, or the week after. And
I know TJ doesn't want to hear this, but the Saints without Derek Carr this year have been terrible.
Yeah.
4.6 yards per play with Derek Carr off the field compared to 5.8 yards per play with Derek Carr on the field. There's a difference of being 10th in the NFL to 31st. Like I just don't want. I'm out on the Saints, especially on a loaded slate. Like there's no way Kendra Miller is taking me down on this slate.
Oh no! To be clear, I was just explaining to Dean what was happening. I was not pitching. That's a good point. I was not pitching Kamara or Kendra Miller. I was just explaining the backfield.
Yeah, and I think
just like Jaleel McLaughlin, like I'm not going to get there because it's 4,500, and we just have too many running backs for even like only 1K more. I think we could find that.
Miller is eating a little bit too much and takes away a little too much from Kamara. The overall stench of the offense, but Miller's probably not getting enough opportunity cost. And should we acknowledge the Jets situation? Isaiah Davis, I think, surprisingly got a pretty good chunk. And I want to say, was it Coach Peak Index? Was it a
it was the most obvious thing, dude. Helen Keller saw that coming. Like,
as far as Isaiah Davis being the guy?
About it just being a split.
Yeah.
Braylon Allen had been terrible for the last 2 months. Isaiah Davis was already playing. Rodgers talked up Isaiah Davis the game after that, playing on passing downs. Like, it was the most obvious thing it was going to be, not Braylon Allen's show.
Davis is running more routes than Allen as well. And that's the thing about playing them. Like, despite it being a Jaguars defense that you think they could exploit, you would have to pick the right one because it was they just copied and pasted their usage. That's it. Braylon Allen got the carry inside the 10-yard line, but there's nothing to suggest that wouldn't change this week.
Any other running backs, or shall we pivot to receivers? We're going to receivers.
God, there's so many.
There's a ton. It's going to be a really, really strong running. We didn't mention Achane. I think Mixon might have mentioned in passing, but not really highlighted. There's a lot. There's a lot of dudes out there as far as running backs. Receivers, John.
Houston, Miami in general, like a game easily could fail, but also could be a game that you just play at 1 o'clock and you see if your pieces get there, and if they don't, you ad lib afterwards.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that. There are all these we've talked about pivots and leverages, but remember, like the slate is entirely split this week with afternoon games. So like ideally, the way you play that from a big picture stance is to take your shots in the morning in the first slate. Get your low owned pieces, look at the ownership in the chalk, and then you can judge what you do with the chalk in the afternoon and how you need to pivot. That's usually how I play this.
Yeah, that's why last week's slate was literally so perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, you had all the chalk in the late games, and you could play your stacks early, your Darnold stacks. And obviously, Josh Allen had a lot to say about what dictated that came out of slate, but it was so easy to just play those your early stacks and say, I know if I need to play Garendo, I need to know if I need to play Charbonnet, I need to know if I need to play Jennings, right? And all those guys ended up getting there anyways. But if you hit at one, like you just soaked all that in, and your team probably went nuts.
I love this split 6, 5, and 1 on the FanDuel slate. Well, obviously you don't get the one, the Sunday night game on DK, but 6 and 5 is our split this week. 6 early, 5 in the afternoon. Daigle, receivers.
Okay. We already hinted at him throughout the game or throughout the show, but Nico Collins, let's start there. We just saw this Dolphins secondary allow 100 plus yards and a touchdown to Devontae Adams to 2 separate receivers. Nico Collins now, because remember, he was a part-time player, had a bunch of touchdowns called back that first play in his first game back off injury. The last 2 games, though, 9 and 11 targets from CJ Stroud. Their pass rate, Houston's over expected, has also increased a little bit. I still expect it to be slowed down with Joe Mixon, but Nico Collins, obviously, amazing play here. T. Higgins, you already said he's chalk, so I won't spend too much time. But before this past week, on Monday Night Football, T. Higgins had actually out-targeted Jamar Chase in the games they played together. 26% target share to Jamar Chase's 23%. Jamar Chase is on a mission, so perhaps he just continues exploding for 40-yard touchdowns and just hanging it over T. Higgins. But also, again, the fact that they previously were neck-and-neck wide receiver ones, I'm just going to ignore one game sample and say T. Higgins should be rostered everywhere. Brian Thomas now, in 3 games around Jacksonville's bye, has seen 25%, 24% in last week, 40% of the team's targets from Mac Jones. It was a career high 8 receptions. And Doug Peterson, after the game, even came out and said that he wants to get him more involved from the very beginning. I don't know how you get him more involved than 40% of the team's targets.
Unless you 0 catches at halftime.
Well, that's okay. Well, there you go. That's true. But yeah, still to come away with it, then we'll see in that one. And obviously, the Jets struggling immensely this past week with Tua hanging another 300 yards against them. So I'll cross my fingers for Mac Jones. And then again, if you're just playing the Panthers-Cowboys game, because I think it could be higher scoring, so it's still Cooper Rush, but he has been Jekyll and Hyde, just like other quarterbacks, compared to from a clean pocket to under pressure. Literally dead last in yards per attempt in the entire league when he's been pressured. And the Panthers on the entire season, dead last in pressure rate. So I think we will have a bit of a cleaner pocket to operate from for CeeDee Lamb. Still getting double-digit targets. Did all of his damage, I know, in the first half. Disappeared in the second half there. But hopefully a ceiling game if that game tends to pop off.
I'm not sure if it's too early to have this conversation. Bengals are 5 and 8 in the season, 3% chance to make the playoffs. They won. They're not mathematically eliminated. But like, at what point are we concerned on like a chalk piece like a T. Higgins, especially for T. Higgins who's going into his free agent season?
0.
Yeah.
This is all stuff that is all like we get this stuff wrong all the time. Like this never really happens.
Wow. Okay. So like maybe week 17, it's a different conversation then.
If the player's not hurt, it just never really happens.
Okay.
I would say week 18, which is most people don't even care at that point. Yeah. Like that's when I would say
there's no way the Bengals are shutting down T. Higgins right now.
Right.
Yeah. Well, they're going to keep rolling him out there because they're not going to resign him.
But he's also not going to quit on the team either.
Yeah. I mean, he's left a lot of games mid-game. I'm sure they're legitimate.
With injuries.
Yeah.
I don't expect to see Breece Hall with the Jets eliminated, but that's for injury purposes, not for bitching purposes. There's 0 reason for Breece Hall to come back. I don't expect to see Kirk Cousins from week 17. That's because he sucks, not for injury reasons. And then, but T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, I expect to be around at least until week 18 or until like the Bengals are officially eliminated. Yeah.
No, the Falcons are gonna be fine these next 3 weeks. Like we've literally been waiting, and not that you're gonna start jamming in Kirk Cousins in the lineup or anything, but We've literally been waiting for this playoff schedule. The Falcons just came off of a 3-game stretch where they played the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Vikings. 2 of those games on the road. Like, those are terrible matchups for a guy like Kirk Cousins anyways. Now they're about to face the Raiders, the Giants, and then you get that Commanders game. Then they finish with Carolina. Like, they're probably going to hang on to this by somehow, right? Like, they're probably going to somehow hang on.
They still have the tiebreaker over the Bucs, right? Despite
Yeah,
being back.
and the Bucs, and I think the Bucs have a harder schedule. The Bucs this week play the Chargers.
Gosh, the Bucs also lost Antoine Winfield on Sunday. They're falling apart on the back end.
Well, the Bucs actually probably went out. If they win this game, they probably do win out. At Dallas, Carolina, New Orleans.
But speaking about getting excited about betting on things, if Cousins is the quarterback for Atlanta and they're in the playoffs, aren't we excited about betting on whoever they're playing against? I don't know who they're playing against, but we'll see.
Yeah, I can't wait for that round 1 Bo Nix versus Russell Wilson matchup. Like, I wish it was going to be in Denver. I would get robbed from it, but because I would love to see Sean Payton and Russ just to stare down.
That would be amazing theatrics. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's definitely.
If they play, it'll be in Pittsburgh, though.
Rich, you got some receivers for me. You promised me, you teased the cheap tight end. I think
the cheap
receiver. A cheap receiver. Yeah. Did you not tease a cheap receiver on New England? Did I not hear that?
Yes, Demario Douglas.
Okay.
Again, for all the reasons why we played JSN and those spots against the Cardinals, right? It's the same thing. It's been targeted at team high 23% of its routes with Drake May. We can talk about Arizona, bend but don't break. They funnel everything to the middle of the field. They play zone coverage on 74% of their snaps. They have against zone coverage, Douglas 26% target rate with Drake May under center. Arizona 28th in points allowed to slot receivers, 27th yards per target, 26th in touchdown rate. Are you going to get a touchdown from Mario Douglas? I wouldn't bank on that, but he's cheap enough to where there's definitely a path where he has like a 7 for 80 game or something. And like at his price on DraftKings, like that's definitely going to pay off.
4 or 5. I did mention De'Ami Brown. How cheap is he? Is he in the 3s?
Yeah, he's got to be like 3K.
Like sometimes they adjust this stuff, sometimes they don't.
Douglas or De'Ami?
De'Ami. How much is De'Ami?
3,100 on DraftKings.
Oh, so he's in the pool.
That's the only reason he's popping is because he's 3,100.
Is that bad? If that ends up being kind of chalky, is that bad chalk?
Yeah.
That's just Jalen Coker, and we've done Jalen Coker twice this year already. It's the same shit.
I mean, he could have theoretically like no targets though. Like,
yeah.
Because before Noah Brown took over that job, they were just rotating dudes. It wasn't like De'Ami Brown had the job and gave to Noah Brown. Like they were playing Zacchaeus, they were rotating in Luke McCaffrey. I like just giving him a full-time projection is I mean it's like some Bub Mean shit, man.
Oh, there it is. Shout out to Bub Means. All right. I'm trying to find the cheap. I feel like it's been like 3 or 4 weeks, it seems like, where there's been like a good receiver that I want to play that's like under 4K or 4-ish on DK. They're just elevating everybody that's like down there.
But do you need it? Do you need that guy?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't, who knows on a Wednesday, right? We're just kind of looking as like a first look here. Sometimes we might, if I want to spend up on Derrick Henry. I was looking at
but everyone's just going to play Stone Smart or Jordan Akins. So
yeah, but maybe don't play those guys. I don't know.
Maybe don't.
I'm not sure, but Stone Smart sounds like
But it really feels like the field, the meta this last like month or so plus has been playing on DraftKings, particularly the like 5.5 to like 6.5K dudes.
Yes.
If you're as the chat points out, if you're playing Jane Daniels as the Brian Robinson pivot, then I mean, Zach Ertz, he just keeps getting targets. He's now seen at least 6 targets in 5 of his last 6 games. That the lone blip on the radar was his 1 target game, or the one where Jaden Daniels only had 19 pass attempts in anyhow. So
and I gave you Vele, Dean.
Yeah. Sure, you like him, or you just like kind of a head nod? Yeah, okay, he's fine.
I gave you they gave you splits.
Well, I don't think we got Dean on any other Colts player. That's the issue. So like,
you can just play Vele.
I can play him as just by himself. Yeah, if he makes something else.
4-2 receiver. He's 4-2.
4-2. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And this is the meta with DraftKings, anyways. By the way, this year is that they found a way where they'll price up even backup running backs. Like another year, Braylon Allen, Zach Charbonnet, those guys would have been 4K and immediately. But this year they really only paid attention to the backup wide receivers to make sure you never get one below 3K, unless he's a true jag. Kayshon Boutte every single week.
Pittsburgh receivers: Van Jefferson 3.5, Calvin Austin 3.6, Scotty Miller 3K. Mike
only
Williams.
One of them ran a route on over 51% of the dropbacks.
And he had one catch.
Van Jefferson.
Yeah.
One catch, and it happened.
You want
to
to play
a
these guys against the Eagles?
Yeah.
I just think it's. I'm not. This is not an endorsement, to be clear, but just it's wild that all 4-5, if we're going to count Skowronek, are under 4K and they're under 3.8, and we just don't care. And I sort of agree to that. I if you want to throw a dart, whatever. AJ Brown, the other side, we're just not going to acknowledge whatever sort of spat. There's rumblings.
I've been acknowledging it for over a month. I mean, I've been talking about this for a while, literally in the worksheet. I've wrote about this for over 5 straight weeks about what the Eagles are doing.
No, but I don't know if you saw, apparently, one of the players.
He's got T.O. and McNabb fighting about it now. It's all happening.
It was Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham said the quiet part out loud. He said they're not even friends now. It's well,
they used to be boys, and just whatever. I don't know what's happened. And
what's stupid is that they're a great team. It hasn't mattered.
They won 9 games in a row.
Yeah, but it hasn't mattered at all. Everyone's acting like the world's melting. It's just like Philly drama. I'm sure they will figure it out by the playoffs. They'll get their heads on straight and be professional about it. But yeah, all they're doing is beating the hell out of teams so they don't throw the ball.
Yes. All right. Tight ends.
I still have a bunch of receivers.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
We didn't name Fantasy Voldemort in the quarterbacks, but doubles are definitely in play for the Jets receivers this week. I mean,
yeah,
they Adams and Garrett Wilson have 56% of the team targets since they traded for Adams. It's condensed. It's those two guys against this Jaguars team that is still they play a lot of man coverage. It's wide open for those guys to get there. So those guys on the board. I did hint at Marv, and Marv, he falls into that same category. All those passing defenses. I've gotten on Marv's and how Petzing's used him, and it's been a shortcoming, and you want more. But that definitely plays into things. And he's facing this Patriots team that is allowing 9.4 yards per target to opposing wide receiver ones. It's 26th in the league. Even with Christian Gonzalez playing good football, they still have been kind of roasted by wide receiver ones all year. They're also 23rd in points per game on outside receivers, where Harrison plays 85% of his snaps. He's got really wide splits against man zone coverage, 31% target rate against man coverage versus 19% against zone coverage per route. So, I mean, he's a tough click. I get it. If Daigle's playing Bengals, I mean, you got to go right back to Calvin Ridley still. I know he didn't get there last week because they had a low ADOT game and they tried to protect Will Levis, but you watch the Bengals, guys are just open all the time. So I know, so you got to go back to Ridley still in that game if you're at his price. I touched upon Demario Douglas. That's about it then. I think that's about it on the list.
So
and then Flowers, like I said.
Ridley on FanDuel is going to be a thing. He's hitting really hard on FanDuel. He's 6K over there. So I think he's going to be popular over there. Not as much what I'm seeing on
the 1 week. The 1 week everyone got to Nick Westbrook-Akine. The 1 week, he of course bottom falls completely out.
I didn't get there. I stuck to my guns. I reversed Martingale. I refused to jump on board. Finally, he didn't score a touchdown. What he had, that 40% touchdown rate.
Levis
on target.
Yeah, Levis missed him wide open.
And the fourth down, basically.
Levis also missed 4 other guys wide open too, though, in that second half.
Well, he got crunched in the first half, and I thought he wasn't even going to come back. And he came back, and he looked like maybe he shouldn't have come back. But I mean,
yeah, I was hoping we get a Mason Rudolph. He practiced Levis practiced in full today, but honestly, if Mason Rudolph in this slate, I would 100% play him against Cincinnati.
I probably, was he 4 or 5? I haven't even looked at the salary, but that's a good.
I haven't looked, but he has to be. There's 0 chance they priced him up. 0.
5K. He's 5K on DK.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Jameis is only 500 more.
He gets the December pricing. Rudolph gets the boost that they enhance his salary, apparently. I guess we're done with receivers. Let's talk about some tight ends. Who wants to go first? Who's excited about talking about tight ends?
Daigle can talk about these guys.
Daigle?
I mean,
all the good ones.
No. I don't have anyone written down except the cheapies. Like
I was
gonna say play the nonsense cheapies because they are good plays. Stone Smart is actually a good play. He came on and like Tucker Fisk still split the routes with him, but dude, like Stone Smart out of nowhere looked like one of the old school tight ends we saw like with the Chargers. He looked like Antonio Gates out there, even getting involved for a deep 20-yard catch. Came on 12 routes right behind after Will Dissly left the game. So yeah, I do think the cheapies are good.
Player profiler comp for Stone Smart. I was curious. Steven Anderson, former
also was a Charger.
I think I thought of him as a Arizona. Am I wrong to think of him as Arizona?
I think he was drafted by Houston. Maybe was I wrong?
Was he the wide receiver at LSU? Turned tight end?
I don't know. Well,
right.
I'll probably let me know.
So yeah.
It says California. Steven Anderson.
Oh, yeah. It was Cal.
I'm thinking of someone else then. Okay.
All right. So, do you have a preference as far as our cheapies, Rich? If we're gonna go digging the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, I think Smart just because of and that's obviously Ladd can come back and take targets away, and Ladd himself might be interesting and on the board too. We just got to wait and see what happens. He's got like 7 injuries, so just see if he comes back or not. But I mean, just the Bucks, the way even last week Bowers didn't get it, but Michael Mayer had 7 catches. Combined they had 10 catches in that game. So there's an opportunity for Stone Smart. I think at 2.6, like why the hell not, man?
What was the participation for Dallas, Ferguson, and Schoonmaker?
It was still Ferguson way ahead.
Okay. Because Ferguson's 3.8. 3.8 versus Carolina. If we're getting full Ferguson, it's a pretty good price.
He ran a route on 80% of the dropbacks. He has no touchdowns this year. If you want to try to cash that in.
Yeah.
Schoonmaker ran single-digit routes. He just earned targets on those routes.
Okay.
They don't have a third wide receiver, basically. I don't know why they don't do two tight end sets. Just make it like the Raiders, even though the Raiders
they should be playing Turpin. Why not just get Turpin more touches?
Well, yes, but you have to make sure your touches with Turpin are smart. You can't send him 50 yards downfield and give him like they did on Monday night.
Like you can let him play some slot receiver though.
They just threw him a contested catch. It's like, what the hell are you doing? That's not how you use him.
Yeah, no, that's not the game, man.
My best ball teams want Jalen Tolbert, but I think those are long gone.
It's still not as frustrating as playing all the Brock Bowers last week. And this dude, Antonio Pierce, my word, using Bowers instead as like the decoy to get Michael Mayer open underneath, just incredible. Two third and two situations, including inside the red zone, and he took Bowers off the field for both of them. Unreal.
No, is that I don't want to be a conspiracy aluminum foil kind of guy, but they kind of want to lose. I don't know if he wants to lose, but
he doesn't want to lose.
I don't think he wants to lose.
He's just good at losing. Like they were down 14-0. They get the ball at the 45. They score a touchdown. They're coming back. They're inside the 10-yard line. It's 4th and 2, and they kick a field goal again instead of trying to tie the game. Unreal. Ridiculous. I say this as someone who had Aiden O'Connell. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, he was broken, of course, last. Is he done with the year? I think he's done with the year.
He was fine. No. We thought his leg was going to get amputated, and he ended up having a bone bruise.
I've never seen an air cast come on and the player play the next week, and it's live to happen this week.
Okay, yeah. See, he's projected. I didn't do any research for the Monday night game, so I didn't even know.
But don't rob us of the Ritter revenge game.
Ritter wants it. Yeah. Chicago, Minnesota, Atlanta, Vegas. I like the 2 Monday night games. All right. Well, let's get a couple quick hitters.
Daigle. Yeah, imagine if Bijan was on the slate too. Jesus.
We don't need more running backs.
I know.
Or Jefferson. Yeah, I obviously talking running backs, but
we didn't even talk about like Devon Achane. We didn't talk about Joe Mixon because we can't get to these guys. There's already so many good plays.
All things considered, quick hitters. Rich, your favorite quarterback this week is who?
Without projected ownership, I would say Jaden Daniels.
Daigle?
Gosh, man. I think Jameis Winston's too obvious, so I'm gonna go the other route and say Joe Burrow.
Yeah. If only he had the will to win. He's been spectacular, but no will to win for Joe Burrow. 33 touchdowns, like 5 interceptions, but he can't score 40 points.
No WTW in his blood.
Running back, favorite running back, John? A lot to choose from.
Let's go. Dude, there's so many. They got like Brian Robinson. I feel like Brian Robinson gets there.
Rich?
Cash games, Chuba Hubbard. I'll say tournaments, Jahmyr Gibbs.
And let's give the people your favorite receiver, Rich.
Demario Douglas.
Yes! I was hoping you'd say that. I was really hoping you'd say that. Oh, yeah.
But really, I would say Amon-Ra still. I mean, we'll see. Again, projected ownership matters so much to kind of navigate some of this stuff.
Sure. Yeah, it's a Wednesday night. You reserve to change your mind, yada, yada, yada. Reserve to change your mind. Daigle, receiver?
I probably should have emphasized it more, but coming out of the bye, I know Rich is on Vele. I think I really like Marvin Mims. I really think like they cut Josh Reynolds for a reason. You have multiple outs because he gets carries as well. They use him in like crazy ways to get him open. So I think I like Marvin Mims at his salary.
Vele 4.2, Mims is 4K on DK. All right. With that, we gave the people an hour and a half of content for week 15. It's going to be a good one. I feel pretty good about this. It's going to be a fun one for sure. But we are going to turn it over to movies now. If you don't want to hear about movies, by all means, appreciate y'all listening. You should stick around because we're going to talk Freddie versus
And this is a fun one, so. Well, maybe. Depends.
Fun. Freddie versus Jason we'll be discussing in just a second. Going to bring in TJ Zwarich. You guys know TJ from RotoGrinders, TJ from Agents of Fandom as well. We're going to bring in Rob Coakley. It's a big week for Rob. Rob's got to be geeked up about the over there at Spike Week. Not just the hometown ghost stories, but Rob, I'm sure you're excited. You're enthused about the best ball season.
Best ball advance week. I got 25% of my teams through with only drafting one share of who we call Voldemort, which is Saquon Barkley, and 0 Derrick Henry teams, and I still got 25% through. So it's going to be a fun sweat for the best ball playoffs coming up.
And didn't you also refuse to draft CMC? You want to take that victory lap?
I only draft. So I was very concentrated in the first round. It's kind of the way I play best ball is I take stands in the first round. So I didn't draft Tyreek Hill or CMC this year for the most part. Like I autoed CMC one time and that team is still really fun, believe it or not, because I made sure to make it a fun team with having to have him. But yeah, my stands were good. I was heavy Bijan. I was heavy Jamar Chase. So the advance rates are pretty good.
Hey, did you have any early takes for week 15? I'm not sure if you're listening, how much you're locked in as far as the slate. Is there one thing you want to tell the people for week 15 that has you excited?
Daigle's all over it. It's Brian Robinson Jr. for this slate. And I also really like Nico Collins overall if you have Nico in best ball playoffs, especially, feels like a really fun player to have. He's one of my favorite players to advance right now.
TJ, you've been behind the glass as well the entire time. Normally you sort of chime in and you give your 2 cents, especially when the Saints are being discussed and Rich besmirched some of your Saints takes, your beloved Saints. So if you have any thoughts you want to retort or anything you want to throw in as far as early week 15 thoughts?
No, I mean, in regards to the Saints, I want them to be bad and lose so that we can get a better draft pick. And I don't want Derek Carr in there having us be average while injuring all of our stud receivers. So I would much rather have the backups in there and have them be slow, boring run games that I don't have to watch and they lose at the end so that we get a better draft pick. But no, super clean, great show today, guys. Had no reasons to chime in, no nothing. It was pretty spot on.
It was
What's the background story for TJ becoming a Saints fan?
When I was growing up, I was a fan of 2 teams. 1, the Chargers, and 2, the Saints. Saints because the high school I knew I was going to be going to were the Saints, and I liked playing with them on Madden.
My high school was the Saints, ironically.
Nice. I for some reason like the Aaron Brooks to Marcus Colston, Joe Horn type connections on Madden back in the day, and so I loved the Chargers, and I loved and the other reason I loved the Chargers was Breeze and Tomlinson. Breeze was my favorite player in the NFL, kind of tied with Tomlinson, and so as soon as Breeze went to the Saints, that was kind of like a done deal. I was probably like 11 or 12 at the time, and that's when I kind of decided, like, all right, this is the one team I'm sticking with.
I'm so old.
Hearing those names.
No, hearing he's 11 when Drew Brees. I was like 50.
I'll double check that. I'm not positive.
John,
So
did you have something there? I thought you were going to say something here as well, but
just curious, whose friend had the survivor pool? Did they get through last week?
That was on the show. Someone in chat.
That was someone in chat.
Oh, I got you.
I was 13 when Drew Brees signed with the Saints.
Damn.
What do we suggest? We suggested Bucks, though, right? Isn't that what we?
That was the suggestion at the
we
time.
We came across Bucks and then told them to listen to Rob. Yes.
Yeah.
I was on the Bucks, and I pivoted to the Saints last week for purposes going forward.
Yeah.
And I'm on the Cardinals this week with the Broncos as a consideration.
There's a sliding doors world where Drew Brees signs with the Dolphins. That was very, very close to happening. Very, very close to happening. The Dolphins insisted on signing Dante Culpepper instead. Yeah.
And Drew Brees was not good with the Chargers. Everyone forgets. He just hit free agency at the right time.
Yes.
Sean Payton turned him into the player that he became.
Let's go ahead and discuss Rob's movie this week. If you're listening to this movie, our podcast on a Friday, congratulations. You're listening to it on Friday the 13th. It's not a coincidence that Rob picked Freddy versus Jason. Freddy versus Jason, R-rated movie that came out in 2013. I'll go ahead and
2003.
2003. Yeah, why did I add 2003. Let's go ahead and read the Rotten. It certainly felt it. It definitely felt of
this
that
felt
time.
the 2000s movie for sure.
That's going to be part of my whole thing. This is as 2003 as 2003 can be.
What is the most 2003 thing about it? Like, I think it's the Jay and Silent Bob character.
Dude, it is everything.
The soundtrack is like every 2000 movie had like the new metal.
Yep.
There's a very specific vibe about movies in that, like, that stretch of like 02 to 04 as well, of like, we don't care about being good, but you're damn sure we're gonna have fun.
Yeah.
The Rotten Tomatoes synopsis: two horror icons face off in this supernatural movie. Disfigured serial killer Freddy Krueger, who attacks his victims in their dreams, has lost much of his power since citizens of his town have become less afraid of him. Enlisting the help of fellow violent murderer Jason Voorhees, Freddy orchestrates a new killing spree. However, when the hockey mask wearing psychopath won't stop chopping up Freddy's intended victims, the two ghouls start to battle each other. Which I did not understand the setup. I guess I'm not supposed to ask questions, right? Is that the first rule of watching Freddy versus Jason?
For all the ways we could have got there, though, I'm curious how Rob would have done it. Like, this at least was palatable.
Yeah, I mean, like, we just got to get there, right? Like, it's just one of those things. Like, at least this sort of.
I was reading some of the pitches on because this movie tried to get made for like 20 years, and I was actually reading some of the pitches, and they were rough.
Do you remember any by chance? Like,
they are ones that I don't want to talk about on this.
Fair enough. Rob, you've seen this before, certainly. Obviously, this is your wheelhouse. Is it been a while since you've seen Freddy versus Jason?
I haven't watched it in quite some time. It's been at least probably 10 years since I've watched it. And this is one of those movies that, is it a good movie? No. Is it a fun movie, as TJ alluded to? Yes. It is so 2003, though. Like, everything about this movie is 2003. The soundtrack, as Rich brought up, the clothing style, everyone has frosted tips in this movie, camera angles, the overuse of bad CGI, because this is when they started to use CGI like way too much. So like you're hitting that terrible CGI, but you get two icons, and I think they do what they're supposed to do with this movie, which is something that we in the last 10 years haven't gotten. You get these movies of like these icons like Kong versus Godzilla and stuff, and they end up being friends at the end and teaming up. No, we wanted Freddy to fight Jason, and guess what we got? We got Freddy fighting Jason. We get the last appearance of Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger in a movie here. It would have been a lot better if we got the best Jason Voorhees, which we did not get, which was a whole nother weird situation. But the guy who played him was fine. I just Kane Hodder, for those that are wondering, who was Jason from 7, 8, and 9 and 10, I believe. So overall, I love it because it's just really fun. You get some lines in this movie that only 20 years old that would never fly today as well. The one line that made me laugh the most wasn't even from Freddy, and I love Freddy. He's one of my favorite horror characters of all time. But it's when they're in the van and they're discussing giving CPR to Jason, and the guy's like, he's like, I have asthma, I can't do it. And the driver just turns around and goes, he has asthma, and names the girl. It's just the most ridiculous line that I've ever heard in a movie ever. So is it a good movie? No. Is it a ton of fun? Yes.
I feel like it would have been more fun for me to enjoy it if I was watching with somebody else. I watched that by myself. I think this movie is significantly upgraded when you're watching with others and you're just all sort of in on it. Like, we all know this is terrible, but collectively we can make this more fun. Is that? Yeah, I think that's part of the deal. John, did you watch Freddy versus Jason alone? Your thoughts as far as Freddy versus Jason?
Well, I didn't watch it. I mean, I did not watch it with anyone, so of course, yeah. Reebs, I'm assuming Jenny probably decided to sit this one out based on the title.
I watched it today. It wasn't a choice. It was just the way our schedule's been. I literally have Wednesday.
Well, she didn't miss anything. Don't worry. But
in 2 weeks, I can pretty much tell you I'm not going to watch the movie. Whatever we pick, I just like the Christmas week. I won't have a window.
What if you win? Well, if you have to win and pick a movie you've already seen, is what you have to do. I think that's the way you got to play that. Call your shot. Daigle?
That's what I did this week.
Yes, this movie happened. It is funnier. I'd say it's definitely funnier than a horror movie. Rob picked the right one. He hit the notes that we were looking for. A little more comedy. We still, like as Reeves put in our private chat, we still need like a comedy in our lives right now, given how busy everything is and the last wave of movies. But at the same time, like I think the part where I shook my head the most, because I shook my head a lot, was you mentioned CGI. What was it that Freddy became? A worm to smoke a blunt? Was it what was it, like a cat, a maggot?
So I was trying to figure out what they were
Alice in
going.
Wonderland.
That's what I thought too. They were going the Alice in Wonderland thing.
Okay. I thought it was a maggot, but either way, yeah, the kills are kind of cool. The CGI is just absolutely wild. I laughed a couple times. You realized it became like, to bring it all back to wrestling, since life goes back to wrestling. It was really just it's about the superpowers. It's really just about Hulk Hogan versus the Andre the Giant. Like, we have to get the monsters together to get them into their final battle. And then that battle's basically the last 30 minutes of the movie. It didn't overstay its welcome. I think it's fine. I think it's fun. But why were you upset though that the Jason, Rob, was not the correct one? Because I feel like this Jason was still just fine. I didn't even notice.
No, he
not
was
not that
fine.
I'm like obviously not an expert like you at it, but
He
I thought
walks
it was
at a
good.
different pace.
Yeah,
he's fine. He was fine. Like, he's not bad, and I think he even played him in a future movie and like the most recent one that came out in like an 08 or 09 as well. And he's not bad. It's just Robert Englund is obviously Freddy Krueger. Like, he is always going to encompass that character. And although there's been a ton of different Jasons, Kane Hodder, like just his movements as Jason, the way that he portrayed the character was always a little bit better than every other Jason that existed before or after him. So getting Robert Englund and Kane Hodder would have been a little bit better, like just for, behind the scene purposes. I don't know how much more he would have brought. I just think he would have been it just you got Freddy versus Jason. You want Freddy, you want Robert Englund, and for me, I wanted Kane Hodder.
Were the kids in the cornfield that told Jason to go fuck a pig, were they an ode to Varsity Blues?
Felt like it, didn't it?
Because wasn't this movie made around that time? So it just seems like this movie was trying to hit all the comedic notes as well.
Yeah, at least all the high school kids were in their 30s, like all horror movies are supposed to have.
Correct,
You know,
yes.
that's a very important part.
Much like Elf, the factory worker who's supposed to be 26 years old and he looks 60. Yes.
Yeah, so like we get that out of the way. I sent you guys some of the surprise people that were in this movie, like just sort of in the background. And I think I saw her, Evangeline Lilly
from Lost.
I was looking for her when you sent it.
At the locker. She's standing by a locker.
She's standing by one of the lockers, and Rey Mysterio Jr. is in this movie, which is wild. I don't even know where he was in this movie.
Couldn't find it, like when you because it's like Jumping Man, or I couldn't figure it out.
I'll tell you. So this is one of the best things about Amazon Prime. By the way, side note, I paid $4 for this. I'm not a cheap person, like whatever. But like I want to buy a good movie. Amazon Prime was like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I got to do." I had to explain to him. By the way, I spent the extra 40 cents. Standard definition was like 360, and I splurged. I said, "Screw it, we're gonna get HD. We want to see all the kills in HD." But the cool thing about Amazon Prime, if you pause the movie, it'll tell you all the actors that are in the scene, like on the screen, right? I'm sure you guys have seen it before. Yeah. And I happened to pause it near the very, very beginning, and it said Rey Mysterio. I'm like, Rey Mysterio, the wrestler? And I guess there's a jumping scene right in the beginning, like the opening montage.
Okay.
So if you're really curious, it came and went, and I didn't go back, but he is near the beginning. Rob, you brought up something interesting, and I was curious too. Like you were talking about the versus stuff, and like, has there ever been? I guess there has, but like a good like so and so versus so and so, like the Freddie versus Jason. And I was kind of googling this before the show, and I'm not talking about like Kramer versus Kramer or Scott Pilgrim versus the World or Joe versus Volcano, or people versus Larry Flint. None of that stuff. I'm talking about like Alien versus Predator. Oh, who can forget? Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf. I don't like what? I'm like, what?
That's not even word.
That Whale Wolf is a thing. I became aware.
You say Whale Wolf?
Whale Wolf. Yeah. I thought it was gonna be Sharknado, but it was like Sharktopus. This seems like something Rob would know about. Lake Placid versus Anaconda. I remember those movies individually, but I don't remember them facing off against each other.
Anaconda would be a great one to do on the show.
Yeah, Anaconda is a wild movie.
John Voight's accent in that movie I've never heard a person talk. It's incredible.
Wild. I was just watching a whole John Voight thing because I watched this comedian that reviews like crazy movies, and he did the Baby Geniuses part 3, 4, and 5.
There's 5 Baby Geniuses?
Yeah, which who knew that was a thing?
I just met the guy who did the first 2 at New York Comic Con.
Crazy.
I got John Boyd fired? Well, John Boyd fired this guy, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. John Boyd is a wild actor who's we might need to dig deep into his bag.
He's an interesting Google outside of movies.
Anaconda's a movie.
Anaconda is a movie.
Is that J-Lo?
Yes. Yeah. Owen Wilson's in that too.
Oh wow.
Ice Cube.
Yeah,
you're right. We may need to watch that movie again. It's been a while.
Yeah, that is
probably terrible, right? But it's fun terrible. I think it's fun terrible.
Or amazing.
Speaking of musicians, we got the girl from one of the from Destiny's Child, not Kelly
Rowland.
Because again, early 2000s, this is what you did.
Yeah, you got to put somebody from the music industry in the movie. You gotta frost the tips. You gotta do a rave in a cornfield right after your boyfriend dies. You gotta do all that stuff.
And they were still together, right? Destiny's Child was still together in 2003, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think they were still, because that was right around when they were doing the theme song for Charlie's Angels, right? Or was that way before this?
I'm not probably sure. Right around when Beyonce was doing the third Austin Powers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think that's when she split off. By the way, Varsity Blues, 1999. So that kind of makes sense. If that was a Varsity Blues reference, it does check out. It's a 2003 movie.
Also amazing that dude was drinking a pitcher of Everclear, which I said we used to play Monopoly, where if you landed on someone's thing in college, you took like a quarter shot of Everclear, like instead of pay tax. Like, dude, that game we never finished the game. But this dude is drinking an absolute pitcher of Everclear and smartly threw it on Jason and lit him on fire. It was it was sharp. His buddy just got his head spun around. Like, you know,
It was sharp, but it was also the worst movie cut one of the worst movie cuts I've ever seen in my life. They like show him throw the picture, they cut to Jason, and they cut back to him within half a second. And he's just holding a torch, just out of nowhere. He just has a torch now. We don't know where he got that torch.
He's in a cornfield. He's just flying around.
So, yeah, little stuff like that. That's why I love like good, like fun, bad horror movies. You know, they leaned into it, but they still played it straight for the most part. You get your fun Freddy stuff. It's a
I need
fun
to hear
movie.
more about this Monopoly game. I mean,
Yeah.
is this a part of game night still, Rich?
no,
Or is that
no. Dude, I wouldn't drink any Everclear if you put never drink it again in my life.
TJ, did you give your thoughts as far as Freddy versus Jason? You've been apprehensive.
I don't have that many thoughts, so that's kind of fine. Yeah, I just watched it today. I agree, very 2000s. It was fun. It was silly. The ending I thought was stupidly ridiculous. But you know, it was fine. It was silly slasher. It was fitting for Friday the 13th upcoming. I'm mostly happy about where I landed on for my comic book character review because it's very fitting for how we started talking about this show.
The ending kind of sets up a sequel that I think never happened. Is that fair to say, or is just kind of keeps the story or the characters? And look, this is not my world, but they always die or mostly die, and they always come back. Rob, is that kind of how this works typically?
So the idea that was being pitched was Ash versus Freddy versus Jason, which is Ash from the Evil Dead franchise, which would have kicked so much ass if we had that movie. That's the one that I want, is Ash versus Freddy versus. But they called Bruce Campbell, and he basically said, "Okay, so how do I beat him?" And they were like, "We're not going to do this movie then." They never heard back.
I don't know if it would have fit though. Like Robert Englund's definitely in the river of ham in this movie. Like he is just swimming in the river of ham. Like he is having a good time. He's he's dropping one-liners out there. He's just having a real fun time. He's real fun in this movie. I love too that the style of fighting that they each had, like where Jason was just like the lurker, but like he's not agile, but like then they had like Freddy was like almost moving like a cat, like jumping around, slashing. It was pretty fun, man. The end fight was cool. Like I forgot when he did the man the torpedo thing. I remember seeing it in theaters, and like I love how like the two just go past. Like Jason doesn't even move. He's like I'm just he just keeps going. He doesn't try to dodge it or anything. It's hilarious. But the end fight was amazing. I wish like the thing about this movie is every time it was Freddy versus Jason, it was awesome. And every time it was about anything else, it was terrible.
Yeah. Well, you just can't do an hour and a half on it, right? And it's Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels is what this movie was.
I did have a question for Rob, and then as well as a question for everyone. Rob, Alien versus Predator or Freddy versus Jason?
Because of my love for Freddy Krueger, and I do like the Friday the 13th franchise overall, that's always going to be my answer. But I do think Alien vs. Predator, the original, from what I remember, I haven't watched it in a long time, is fine. The sequel is absolute hot trash.
And then for everyone, what's your top verse movie?
Well,
we had Godzilla versus Kong drop recently. Obviously, with Freddy versus Jason, Alien versus Predator. What's your top verse movie?
So I would cheat, right? And I would say it's Kramer versus Kramer or Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Is that cheating?
That's not cheating. Those are two examples.
I mean, it's not this format. Kramer is not actually physically trying to murder Kramer. Only in a courtroom. Spoiler.
It's still
you just don't get properties now that are owned by different studios that you just can't get any crossover.
How was
I specifically did mean like in the title to expand on the options, because Scott Pilgrim versus the World would be mine too.
Dracula versus Billy the Kid.
I saw that. I didn't know that was real. Like that, I saw that on a list. I'm like, Billy the Kid fought Dracula. It's an interesting. Yeah.
Also, Tucker and Dale versus Evil is a awesome, fun movie if you haven't seen it.
Batman versus Superman.
And it's stuff like hit like Mortal Kombat or whatever as like downloadable playable characters. It seems like How is that not happening? Is it happening and I'm not aware of it?
Yeah,
For
they
who?
did the horror. Mortal Kombat did a whole horror movie like series.
They did Jason. They did Freddy Krueger.
Okay.
Yeah.
It feels like a license to print money. Like I feel like people would definitely be all over that.
I can't even remember the last verses I saw outside of this one. I am slowly. It's odd you mentioned Aliens, TJ, because like I am watching Aliens now. I'm just kind of going through them all again. By the way, awesome, still kick ass.
So
I'm about to reach Alien versus Predator, but like the most recent one I remember is what, Goku versus Vegeta. I think it's been a while.
Wasn't Batman versus Superman a big deal like not that long ago?
Yeah, it sucked though.
Yeah, but not good.
Okay, that was the problem. But it was like a huge budget, like big production.
Yeah.
Was that Affleck?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
The People versus Larry Flint. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
I threw that one out as well.
I'm shocked wasn't Dean's choice.
Joe versus Volcano.
That's on my list as well. I think that's terrible. It's just a fun title. I've not seen that in 20 years at least. Is that good, Joe versus the Volcano? I think it's bad, but I'm not sure.
I had to revisit it.
I know Dean hasn't seen this because he's an absolute snob about animation, but a beloved film is Mitchell's versus the Machines, and I genuinely couldn't stand
it's a good movie. Well, that's the Phil Lord movie.
Yeah, everybody, it's like beloved by the masses, and it just like did not work for me for a few very specific reasons of like, I hate movies that force the kids to solve the parents' traumas as opposed to vice versa. And so that one just pissed me off the whole time, but it's like a beloved movie by everyone who's ever watched it.
Danny McBride's in it. I'm interested. I like Danny McBride, but I've never seen it.
Also, the versus thing in horror has been around forever because you had Dracula versus Frankenstein in like the 40s. You know, they threw the Wolfman in a few of those. So that it's a trope that went away for a while that they brought back, and now they're doing it with other stuff. I just don't like when they become friends at the end and like team up. So like that's the shit that I hate. It's like if I get Batman versus Superman, I want Batman versus Superman. If I get Kong versus Godzilla, give me Kong versus Godzilla. Don't give me a common enemy to throw in because it's so formula at this point for those type of movies. It's like there's animosity between two characters, a villain rising up in the background, and then the last 30 minutes is them banding together to take out that villain. And it's like then there's the mutual respect head nod type deal. And it's just like that's what every versus movie has been the last 10 years or so.
I just watched Deadpool versus Wolverine, and they were versus each other for a while until the end.
Well, that's Deadpool and Wolverine, right?
And Wolverine.
I know, but I'm saying it was kind of a versus movie for a bit. You know, the first two acts, I guess, they were kind of verse, and then all of a sudden, they'd be like, maybe we should team up.
Yeah, fair. At least that was fun.
Has Sharknado ever fought anybody? I feel like that should have happened at some point. Does Sharknado have any enemies out there?
The critics.
Ian Ziering.
On the note of tornadoes, I watched Twisters for the first time yesterday or 2 days ago, and that was a fun movie, but I thought the writing was just absolutely ridiculously hilarious. The way they treated it almost like a kids fantasy movie. You are the chosen one who can stop the tornadoes. I thought it was the most ridiculous writing ever, and I thought it was hilarious.
That's the route they went with that movie?
Yeah. Yeah, very much like there's one person smart enough to stop the tornadoes in Tornado Valley, Oklahoma, but she's also being charmed by Glenn Powell at the same time. That was the plot of the movie.
That's plausible because that Glenn Powell
the first stone.
It's a likely scenario.
Maybe I'd rather watch.
I can't believe we brought up Kelly Rowland and didn't even talk about her most infamous contribution to pop culture, and when she tried to text Nelly through Excel.
Microsoft Excel. As soon as you said that, I knew where you were going. I love it.
It's like the meme pops up like on the anniversary, like all the time. It makes its rounds, but absolutely just an incredible piece of direction that they had her text through Excel.
Unbelievable.
Why isn't he answering?
Shall we play the Rotten Tomatoes game? Shall we play the IMDb game?
This is gonna be a tough one, but yes.
It's a little tricky, maybe. We'll see. Let's go IMDb first, 1 through 10. Rich, you're going first.
IMDb, this has got to be like a 5.2.
Oh my god, that was my exact guess.
Daigle?
Gosh, yeah, it's got to be really low, right?
Which is mid, yeah. Like,
yeah. Let's go 5.5. No. I'm going to 4.8. I'm going below.
TJ?
I'll go 3.7.
Oof.
Jeez.
Rob?
Give me 6 even.
5.7. 5.7 out of 10. So depending on if we're playing Prices Right rules or not, I guess Rob is probably closest. So Rich was right there too at 5.4. Rich would probably be the winner.
5.2.
Freddie only kills one person in this movie.
I was 5.5. No, I went below. Damn it.
You changed. You flip-flopped. Now, Rotten Tomatoes. Rob, you're going first. I want both.
No, Freddie kills 2. Rich, he has the body. He has the body chop. Oh, Freddie. You're right. Yeah, I'm thinking of Jason.
Yeah, Freddie only kills one person in the movie.
Right.
It's probably the only good child actor, or not child actor because he's 30, but
the one that he sets on fire.
Well, once the girl that was the E's first girlfriend in Entourage came up, I was like, ooh.
I didn't put that together. I kind of blocked out Entourage.
Was that the girl that smokes?
Dude, listen, man. I tried to revisit Entourage. Ooh.
Yeah.
It's bad, right?
There's no way. There's no way it's good. No way.
Well, especially the last several years. It hung on way too long.
Well, let me just say, like, that show can't get made today.
Yeah.
Probably didn't age well. Yeah. Tough to get a green light in 2024. All right, let's do Rotten Tomatoes. I want both the critics and the audience. We have 250,000 audience members, 164 critics. So pretty big sample. Rob, you're going first. Give me critics first.
Let's go 38% critics. And let's go 64% audience.
TJ?
I was going to go 37, but I don't actually think it's going to be lower than that. I just liked my 3.7 ideas, and so I don't want to go on the low side of that because then I can get nothing higher with Rob going 38. So I'll go 39. John. Oh, and then for audience, 55.
John?
Yeah, because the audience grading, it has to be like horror fans like Rob, right? So let's go like 63. And critics, critics like 32.
Horror fans can be snobbish too.
I actually think the fans gonna be low on this because it's not a throwback horror movie, which none of us really gave takes on. I was curious to see because it's more of an action style horror movie. Like there's not a lot of horror components, and I think a lot of people probably are. I think this is probably a split movie for horror fans because it probably just wasn't what a lot of people wanted it to be. Like for some it was, for some it wasn't. Like anytime you do something this big, you're always going to have a divisive fan base.
So put a number on it, Rich.
50. I'll say 50%, 50%. Dead even on both.
Well, that strategy worked out for one of them. You binked it as far as the audience. The audience is exactly 50%, and the critics 41%. 41% for the critics, which is I thought it'd be a little bit lower. If I would have guessed lower. Yeah, 41 from the critics, 50 from the audience. Now we got to give our personal scores. TJ, you said you're excited about your character that you're going to be putting the score for Freddie and Jason. You're prepared, Freddie versus Jason. You are prepared this week, so feel free to fire it off.
Yeah, it's a very specific version of the character, not just the character itself, but a very specific version because we were talking about 2003 movies and like what makes a 2003 movie. And I started thinking to myself, what is the most 2003 movie I can think of? And then I Googled it and it did in fact come out in 2003. So this movie is Ben Affleck's Daredevil.
Oh, okay.
Straight down to the Evanescence featured throughout the movie.
Rob, do you have a 1 through 5 score?
Yeah, this is a 2.8 for me. Like, cause it's fun. So we're gonna go 2.8.
I like that you've seen the movie before and you knowingly give us a 2.8 to watch. I was like, you guys should all watch this 2.8 with me.
I could have gave you a worse Friday the 13th movie. We could have watched part 7.
And you're rounding up. You're rounding up the 2.8.
We could have watched him go to Manhattan, which he only went to for one day. Everything else was filmed in Canada because they couldn't afford to film in New York.
I was gonna say he took Manhattan, but that was the Muppets, right? The Muppets took Manhattan, not Jason. I think that's a different movie.
Yeah, Jason went to Manhattan as well, theoretically.
Was it at the same time as the Muppets?
Who's to say?
Muppets versus Jason, the versus we need. Muppets versus Jason would be amazing. We can somehow get those two worlds talking. Get the agents on the phone. Daigle, do you have a wrestler for the people?
Yeah, so this movie features icons of the industry, technically. Like they are monsters. And so you want to think like Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Jake the Snake Roberts, Roddy Piper, but also this movie's a joke. So and this was back in the day. Those guys are old school wrestling. That's not when Vince McMahon turned them into dancers and made them a joke. So like those guys cannot be this. And even later on, like Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hulk Hogan's badass. Macho Man Randy Savage with NWO is pretty badass. So this has to again be an icon who was turned into a joke. So this movie is Stardust, which is Cody Rhodes' alter ego before he left for AEW.
Rob, what was that noise? What was that noise? You have an opinion?
I like it. I liked it. It's not where I thought he was going with it when he was setting that up, but I like it.
I like Goldust. That's his brother. Is that his brother? That's his brother, right?
Goldust is a brother in WWE version. Yes. Otherwise, in AEW, he's Dusty Rhodes. He's just he's just a Texan who paints his face. Yeah.
But there was that time where he got like electrocuted.
There's a time that what?
There was that time where he got electrocuted and he had I think he was like a stroke or something like that. Wasn't that sort of his gimmick?
Yeah. I forgot about that.
And there was also the time where he not only shattered Val Venus's balls with a nut kick, but then he helped out Taka Michinoku, who dragged him to the back, and they chopped off Val Venus's dick, according to lore.
Well, they almost
according to lore.
They had to come back the next week and be like, they almost did it.
And that's when Val Venus then, because it's good storytelling, put on a suit and joined Stevie Richards to be what was that? The Right to Censor, to join the group, the Right to Censor, to turn everyone straight edge instead.
With the Good Father.
Wrestling is the best, Dean. It's the
I love it.
best.
I love it.
The Good Father instead of the Godfather.
Yes, with the Good Father.
Spectacular stuff. Rich, you have a tight end for us?
Yeah. This movie is like, is it good? Maybe. There's things I like. I still think like, man, when Jason just took Freddy's hand, like he first of all, when Freddy stabs Jason in the goalie in the eyeballs is amazing. And when he kills Freddy supposedly with Freddy's own hand, like the end fight was awesome, man. It was fun. Well, did we have a good time? We did. Did we love it? If you're in on the joke, you like it, right? If you're in on the movie, you're feeling it. When you're not, you're just like, oh, you don't like it. So I feel like there's only one player that kind of fits like that, and it's Taysom Hill.
Wow. I like it.
Too soon to mention Taysom Hill. It's too soon. Yeah, I like it. That's a good call. I will give it, of course, I give 1 out of 100. My scale, I'm going to give it I'm adding in fun. I got to add some points for fun. So we'll give it a 30 out of 100 because we're adding some points for fun. And it would have been better if I watched it with somebody probably, but that's kind of where we're at. I watched it all alone. Okay.
Are the two Jason movies we watched through this show the only two of you have seen?
Yes. Should I see more?
Yes. You're an American. You should see more Friday the 13th movies.
I like some horror stuff and some horror elements, but I didn't hate it. I wasn't miserable, but it was fine. Yeah, I'll never watch it again, unless I'm in a group and everybody's insisting on it. All right. I happened to barely get away with a victory last week. We were talking about we need something a little bit more, I guess, funny. But I've been threatening this movie throughout the entire time. Unless you guys have any disagreements,
that's not how the game works, Dean.
What do you mean?
You just get to tell us what we're watching.
It's not a democracy, but I'm happy to hear you out. If you want to pitch me something, I'm willing to listen to your pitch.
Anaconda.
I really want to watch Challengers. Challengers, I know it's on a lot of best of lists. It's supposed to be kind of funny. It's supposed to be like a really, really legitimately good movie. Came out this year. It's streaming, I think, still on Amazon Prime. I'm fairly certain of that. Last I checked, I think it's still somewhere in my queue. I think TJ has already seen it. Is that correct, TJ?
Yeah.
And you approved of it? Like you said, you liked it? You thought it was good?
Yeah, it's one of my probably top 3 movies this year, 3 to 5.
Ahead of Twisters.
Yes, definitely.
Just wanted to make sure. I wasn't sure if you had to revise your list since your rousing endorsement about 15 minutes ago or so. But that's kind of this is something I've been wanting to watch. And the other one I was thinking about was My Old Ass, starring Aubrey Plaza, which I think is also I think that's also an Amazon Prime movie. It's also pretty funny. But yeah, I guess it is not a democracy, but I don't mean to force challengers. Does anybody have anything else, or challengers it is, and that's that?
Challengers it is. It sounds
I'm
like
good with challengers.
Challengers accepted.
Real quick, I will not be on the show next week, but I will still watch the movie and give my review. I am going to a early screening of Nosferatu next Wednesday night. So,
nice.
Yeah,
pull out your phone and DM us your survivor pick so we can pass it along to everybody.
For next week,
Yeah.
well, right now, this week, I got to get through this week. It's Cardinals or Broncos. I was going to ask you guys offline what you thought. And
pressure.
My particular survivor pool after this week, you have to make 2 picks in weeks 16, 17, and 18.
How many are left? How many people have survived at this point?
19 out of 3,470. And it's $100 entry, so it's $340,000. So.
Wow!
Hell yeah!
And it is on Splash as well.
I can't pick that for you. I can't do that.
No, I'm gonna pick it myself, but do not
make me in charge of 340K. I don't want that.
And you can't make a deal, right? You said it's through Splash, so it's just like there's no negotiations or nothing.
Yeah, this particular survivor pool has been around for a while. It got moved to the owner the guy who ran it made a deal with Splash, and now it's on Splash, but don't think there's any deal making on this. So if I get through this week, I actually feel really good because of some of the teams I have left, but we'll see what happens this week.
I don't want to get this wrong, but I think Splash is somehow in alignment with Office Football Pool. Is that correct, Rob?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
This pool used to be run by one guy. So he got sick of collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars and
getting flagged by the IRS with
figuring that whole situation out. So he moved it over to Splash.
Well, hey, maybe you can make not to give you a homework assignment. Maybe you can record a minute video and TJ can throw it up on the screen. You can give your analysis that way. That could be fun.
You ruined the fun. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm going to do that for you.
Oh, you already had that planned. I wasn't aware of it. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. Anything else, boys? Or we're getting out of here. We're getting out of here, right? Looks like we're getting out of here. On behalf of John Daigle, Rich Hribar, TJ Zwarich, Rob Coakley, I was Dean. Good luck week 15. Enjoy Challengers. We're out of here. Oh,